Call the public hearing to order. Commissioner Smith, you give us the prayer and the pledge, please, sir.
Our Father, once again, we come before your presence to thank you for all the many blessings you bestowed upon us and this opportunity to serve as servants of this city. We ask, Lord, that you continue to guide and direct our paths, that all that we shall do will be pleasing and acceptable and be for the benefit of the residents of the city of Apopka. Bless now thy Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, last but certainly not least, Public Works. DO, you are front and center.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. My name is David Adburu, Public Service Director. This evening, you will be presented with an overview of Public Service Department Division budget for the next fiscal year, 23-24, according to our respective fund allocation. As you all know, Public Service Department strives to maintain the city of Apopka infrastructure and fleet, thereby promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the resident by providing for their water, sewer, and reclaimed water, sanitation, stormwater, street, and fleet maintenance. In addition, this department aids in planning, design, permitting, construction, and retrofit of various projects, and our staff assists in many supporting roles to other departments, as well as emergency management. This type of work explained above is being performed by a team of very dedicated and hardworking frontline staff, such as maintenance personnel, operator, foremen, secretaries, and a variety of professional staff, effectively managed by a team of very industrious managers and supervisors. Some of them are in the audience and will be assisting with the presentation and answering of any questions that you may have. The Public Service Department is comprised of 8 divisions and with a total of 136 staff. Currently, there are 18 vacancies. The Public Service Division is funded by Stormwater Fund, Utility Fund, Sanitation, and Fleet and Street Fund. General Fund, which funds street and street funds. Our presentation outlined will address the Utility Fund first, followed by the Fleet. Richard will be presenting the Stormwater, and Josh will be handling the Street and Sanitation Division. Without further delay, I will start with the Utility Fund, but I would just like to make a comment here that in the past, our Enterprise Fund was used to supplement other programs. And looking to the future, we will need to have an in-depth evaluation of how this fund is being used in transferring support to other fundings within Public Works and many other divisions, because from what I learned is that this fund is severely impacted in terms of the reserves. So I just want to put it out there before I start.
Can you expand on that comment? What do you mean?
What I do understand because I'm here just for 20 months, right? I understand that the reserve from the enterprise fund, right, is getting low, right, or maybe non-existent. But if you look at the past, what I'm saying in the past, maybe that fund was used to supplement or fund transfer to other divisions, right? So we need to have a hard look at it and in-depth and understanding how the fund is being transferred, right, and for what reason, so that we do not deplete that reserve, because enterprise funds should only be used for, water and sewer and reclamation retrofit work, right? So if it depletes, it means I cannot perform those work if the fund is not there. So I'm saying I don't have a good handle of it, but in future, we need to have an in-depth understanding how that fund is used.
And that's one of the things that Blanche is going to be working on, is making sure that the transfers back to the general fund for the services that we provide for utilities is adequate, not excessive.
Exactly.
So when we say low, what's
What
the reserve?
Yeah, what is the reserve right now? We estimating right now, it is kind of low. We tried to stay within reserves right now, so I'm still reconciling it on the 401, because I do have to look at some other things. So when we went through the budget process, we tried to do everything we could without negatively impacting operations to use as less reserves as possible. So we ended up using about $9 million in reserves for the 401 fund. So, and that's kind of leading us to, we're heading to the negative situation. But again, it's still something that I'm reconciling.
So you're saying that you used 9 million from,
Our 401s, yeah,
From-
operating to balance their budget,
to balance the budget
Yes.
for,
24.
okay.
And they've used reserves in the past. Now, let's be clear.
And this is where I struggle a bit. So I get that we've got turnover in finance directors, city administration, things like that. But we should have a pretty good trail of what our balances are.
Again, yes, we do, and that's what
But-
I'm saying. This is the thing, with 401 and 403, when the auditors, in the report that you have, they have their information combined. So I had to work with the auditors to break it out. So that's what I'm doing, okay, between 401 and 403. So that's why I'm giving you an estimate at this time.
Can you tell me, where is that estimate for that?
Like I said, we're using 9 million right now in reserves to balance their budget. So that is kind of taking them into the negative, almost about 3 mil.
By how much?
About 3 million. I didn't want to give you that estimate because I still have to look at some of the budget amendments and things associated with them as well. But we're still reconciling right now. One of the critical things with the 401, and you're going to see that as it comes up, we have some rate increases in there for water. And some of the rates in there, about 6% is reflected in there. And for sewer impact fees, about 13.5%. So that's one thing that is going to have to continue to increase until we can build up the reserves on this fund.
I think this conversation brings back to a conversation we had a couple of meetings ago, just in reference to the forensic audit. Let's get kind of some numbers. Let's understand where we're truly at, I think is going to help to really understand, take a deeper dive on our finances overall.
Yeah. It's just taking the time to do it. When I go over the general fund, I've completely reconciled that. So I'm going to share that information with you. So this one is just a few adjustments that need to be made, but there's definitely a need to increase those rates regardless.
Sure. No, yeah, and I'm not saying anything about the rate increase. I think that's definitely well overdue. But I think having a forensic auditor come in, which you and I have discussed a couple of times, it is well worth doing. So I know it's not why we're here tonight, but obviously there is a need to kind of make sure we understand how we got here.
Well, the how.
So in general, with the utility fund, you can see in year 2022, the overall here is $26 million. You see in 2023, $30 million, 30.7, and 2024 is 32. So there's an increase there about $2.8 million or something else in the overall. I'm going to go down deeper into each department who use this utility fund. So the first one is the administration section. The utility administration, the fund code is 401-3010. This division is being managed by Vera Kerr, the office manager, and it is responsible for all the administrative and customer service support, purchasing and warehouse inventory, as well as invoice and purchase order, and budget tracking and preparation. To date, this division handled more than 11,000 customer calls, input more than 4,300 work orders, scanned more than 2,208 documents, prepare more than 96 SOP, 5 working manual, among others. If you look at the budget highlight for this department, as you can see here, the personnel costs went up by 9%. This is nothing out of the ordinary, it's normal business and employee and payroll expenses. That is, 49% increase there. And in the operation expense, it went up from 99,000 in 2023 to 150, which is an increase of 51,000. And that increase is attributed to $40,000 because we receive a quote from a contractor to perform scanning of all our plans and reports, because we have the hallway and the whole office full of these report and plan. And we need to have them in some digital components, right? So they're going to plan. So we have a quote for $40,000, and that take up the major portion of that increase here. It went up by 52%. The $10,000 difference is to accommodate cumulative janitorial service rate increase, additional of radio, admin staff vehicle maintenance increase, and fuel charges contribution. So that is what that increase of $51,050 is, well contributing to. There is no capital outlay. And with that, that conclude the utility administration fund code 401-3010. Is there any question that I can?
The $6.9 million that says transfer, is that the transfer from the reserves?
Yes,
that
it
you're
is.
speaking of?
Yes. Yes. That is something we need to look at. And that's what we'll be doing over the next few months. But what I mentioned to the mayor is what we're trying to ascertain is the actual cost of that shared cost that the general fund is providing to that enterprise fund. That is typically the measure of how much is being transferred. And the amount has not increased, as I understand it, for the past several
Since I've been.
several
5
years, but it was much higher. And so it has gone down. So
As a
we need-
percentage, it hadn't gone down, we just kept the rate.
Oh, kept it
same.
status quo.
Status
Okay.
quo for the last 5 years, even though
Cost has
costs have
gone
gone up. yeah.
Okay, so it's been status quo even though cost has gone up. But again, it's something that we plan to revisit and maybe, it could be lower. I don't know.
So with respect to the water plant, operation fund code is 401-3111. The water plant operation is under the management of Glenn Brooks, water resource manager, and the staff are responsible for the maintenance of 5 water treatment plants, a aeration and chlorination system, the water wells and pumps, and other instrumentation, as well as water quality and water conservation program. Look down at the budget highlights here. You see that the personal costs, there's a 3% increase. Nothing out of the ordinary with this increase. It's normal business and employee payroll well expenses there. In the operation well expense, there is a 7% increase, which translates to $70,870 in that line for the proposed 24. And that increase is attributed to an accommodation of a UCMR testing. MR stands for Unregulated Contaminants Monitoring Rule. This is a mandate every 5 years by DEP under the Clean Water Act that we have to perform certain other testing on the water supply system. So there are about 30 tests or more we have to perform with different elements, right? So we have $20,000 is appropriated for that because we have to meet that mandate in 2024.
And on that line, I know that you've seen, there's been quite a few articles in the Orlando Sentinel over the last couple of weeks about the dioxin, and I've had some of our residents reach out to us, so I had.
Right, I saw a newspaper, article of that, Mayor, and because of a conversation with you, staff is conducting, some testing. By rule, we do not have to.
Right.
But through your insistence, we decided to go ahead and to conduct that test. We should receive result of that test within the next 3 weeks, right?
No, the results for that test, I'm honestly hoping to get by the end of October. The kits are on order, and from what the outside lab has recently told me, it can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to get the kit.
Can you come up to the mic, because we have a dedicated audience that is also tuning in. So I'm sorry if I'm asking you to
It's okay.
repeat it again.
Give your name.
I'm Erica Atkinson. I'm the Regulatory Compliance Officer for the city. I have reached out to our outside lab about that testing. The kits are going to take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to obtain. They are on back order across the country. He's hoping to be able to get them to me faster. As soon as we get them, we will pull the samples, get them back to the lab, and then I'm looking at a 3 to 4 week turnaround time on the results for that specific testing.
And that's the testing for?
Dioxin.
The dioxin.
Okay.
But I just want to emphasize, this, we are not, to be proactive, we are doing the test because of the mayor advisement. So the $20,000 is for those UCMR testing requirement of that $70,000. We have a utility rate of $24,140 increase. Sodium hypochlorite, which is a chemical that we use to treat the water, the increase went up $19,000, close to 20, and the increase in fuel cost by $6,000. That is all what contribute to that 70,870 increase. On the capital outlay, you're going to see there's a big 88% increase in that funding, and that I'm going to describe what is that 3.6 million increase is for. The first thing is to accommodate the abandonment of well 1 and 2 and the deepening of well number 3 at Plymouth Regional Water Treatment Plant. These wells were drilled in the upper aquifers, and as a mandate by our CUP permit, CUP means consumption use permit, they need to be deepened to the lower aquifer. By deepening well number 3, the overall capacity will be increased by 40%. So plan and permit are in place. The estimated construction cost is $1.5 million. So $900,000 from 401, from a 401 fund is appropriated in this fund, in this 3,607,849 requests. The other major item there is Grossenberger Water Treatment Plant. We have a 1.5 million gallon tank. There's two tanks. One is 0.5, the other is 1 million gallon. The 1 million gallon ground storage tank need to be replaced. This tank was installed back in 1989 and exceeded overall life expectancy, and the chlorine contact chamber need major repair. We will be replacing this 1 million gallon tank with a 1.5 million gallon tank. The design plan is 61% done. We should get it, the permit is forthcoming, and we'll be ready to have this bid out by December. The estimated construction cost is $5.5 million. We have a combined 1.9 in our current 401 and 4G budget line, and is requesting $2.367,849 million. $2.4 million is appropriated in this line to accommodate us to come closer to that $5.5 million. The rest, 1.8, will be allocated to 403. And the reason being because we are putting a higher, we have 1 million gallon tank, we are placing a 1.5. So we're increasing the capacity by 0.5 million gallons. So as a result, that is new capacity. So that's why it went to the 403 fund, that we have to split the funds up like that.
And
So-
just for the public, 403 is impact fee.
Impact fee funds,
You're
right, thank you.
Yeah.
So I see that, maybe it's just an 8 decimal position, but are you saying 1.8 because in there right now it's 1.18?
Yeah, 1.18, sir.
Okay.
1.1, that's correct. 1.18, that's correct. You're correct. The other differences is because we are going to replace a 2004 Ranger, a Ford Ranger due to meeting this life expectancy and wear and tear, with a F-150 pickup. And that is for use by operation staff to run daily between these plants for check, and that cost is $40,000. The rest of the difference is for distribution flow meters, well replacement, $100,000, and the difference of the $200,000 that is remaining we'll be using for miscellaneous rehabilitation of the other water treatment plant. You know, things goes wrong with some parts, we have to rehabilitate them. So that will be used for that funding. So that is what that increase to 3.6 million is for. Is there any question that I can answer on that?
Are you going to talk about 403 specifically, or should I just ask questions about that now?
No, 4G, I think this is operation funding here, so everything here will be 401. I just mentioned the 4G in order for the maths to work out so you understand, you know, how the maths work out, why I'm asking for 2.3 rather than.
No, but he's asking, are you going to bring up all the 403?
No, I don't. No, I don't have.
I'll ask the question now if you don't plan to. I didn't know if you were going to specifically talk about.
No, I wouldn't be talking about 403.
But on that front, on the impact fee front, I mean, the starting base was 6.1 million, and it's on the final budget, it's 2.1 million. How come we scrap $4 million worth of work? because there's several things on here that are not funded on the list,
So where are you reading that from?
on this sheet. So this is the 403 with all the line
Right.
items. So at the very top of the page, it has 6 million.
Yeah, I don't have that sheet in front of me.
At the top,
Yeah.
what he has is, that was the base budget.
Correct.
That's what you're talking about, which we.
Base
used-
budget, my assumption is what they went into, started with.
No, that's not what they started with. Base budget was based on FY '23. Just so you know. We put in a base so that they would not have to put in the details again, and that was the base budget. It's not what they started with, it's what their base, we just used that as a base so that they would have all the details what they had for '23 in there, and they wouldn't have to key in those details again. We could have left it 0 and they would have been able to detail everything out. It was just to make it easier for them. So we
Yeah, I mean-
started with a base of 23.
Because on the water fund, it started at 6.1 million, we're saying 2.1, so a reduction, $4 million. On the reuse, start at 7, we're talking 1.8, so do the math there. On the wastewater reclamation, start at 1.4, all of that's, there's no projects there. So I just want to make sure that I'm reading that correctly.
I
Because
don't,
like Golden Gem is on there.
you in
so
the 403 fund?
Right, that is the 403 fund.
You're in the 403.
Yeah.
I get that.
That's
This is-
That's what we were
this
just talking
This
about.
is what we're given, right?
Okay.
We've got a
Right.
list of things within the 403 fund, projects. They wouldn't be there unless someone put thought around having these on the budget. So either my interpretation of this sheet is that there was conversation about there being some budget allocated towards it, and that budget did not happen. So if I need to look at these sheets completely different, I need to know that now because I don't want to waste a whole bunch of people's time.
What they had, the base budget was the FY '23 budget.
So
the items-
to like, let's just use it as a very specific example in here. Let's go to the bottom 3 lines. It says improvements other than buildings was 1.4. The next line down basically subtracts that 1.4. The next line down goes WWS, new pipelines, upsizing agreements. There's no money allocated for that. The next line down goes West Kelly Park Road, Jason Dwelly Parkway, Plymouth Sorrento Road, 12-inch. No money allocated for that. Were those all last year's projects?
That's exactly.
And they
what
never
it
were
was.
zeroed out? Or they
Right.
weren't deleted out
They
effectively?
weren't deleted out. They'll be rolled
So-
over from 23 to
So all that's just
24.
labeled from last year?
Right, because some of those projects is not yet completed. They're in the final stage, but there will be 403 fund will have to be used because they are new projects. They're not existing maintenance projects.
It's very frustrating because
Well, because none of this is right. Like, none of, anything we're looking at is inaccurate.
It's just,
it's a
it's
colossal waste
challenging
of
to
time.
understand. But I didn't pick this OpenGov system. Came exactly.
I don't
out of the
hear
system.
anybody claiming accountability for this thing. It's always somebody else's fault. What we have is a whole bunch of information that we're up here speculating whether or not it's accurate or not. And for most cases, it's not accurate. Sorry.
Mr. Deal, let me ask you a question. I heard you say you're abandoning 2 of the wells because one well we're going deeper into the lower aquifer. With the growth that we're experiencing, are we still going to be able to supply the water?
Yes, because the capacity is our understanding from the geologists. The capacity when we deepen that well, the combined capacity right now there is 1.4. When we deepen this well, we can have a capacity of 2.2 or more. So the capacity is going to increase more than 40%. So we can have increased well capacity with this one well deepening because we are going to the lower aquifer.
Okay.
And the other question, and the other situation here, because of the COP permit, it is mandated that we either deepen those well or we abandon them.
It's your fortune one way or the other.
That part I understood.
Yeah,
Just
but
want to
we-
make sure that because we're abandoning 2,
We have the
we're
capacity.
still going to have enough water.
That's correct.
Okay.
From my understanding, yes.
So you had said the Grossenbacher plant, we need to basically redo those because they're built in 1989?
Well, it's not only built in 1989, the contact chamber, the chlorine contact chamber is getting worse and worse. So we need to replace that
That's the
entire
tank, the
The
tank.
tank.
I understand.
The tank need to be replaced.
understand.
And the tank, you see what happened, you see the tank there, but it's not really a tank, it's a water treatment plant, right? Basically, water's coming from the well to the plant, it is aerated, treated, then goes to get the chlorine, well, contact, store or supply, well, to the rain. So the entire water treatment plant, you see not a tank there, but it appears to be a tank. So it have a lot of instrumentation, a lot of electrical work, right? A lot of compartment work have to be done, and to replace it, it's very expensive because the cost went up. I do not know if that $5.5 million was given as the estimated cost now, right, will be held when the 90% plan or the 100% plan is received in December.
Okay. And then, so with that in mind, and knowing that those are from 1989, do we have other assets that are of similar age? Are we doing like a usable life calculator and knowing, hey, in 3 years, this is coming up, in 2 years, whatever. So I'm getting an affirmative head shake, so.
Right. We have six of those water treatment, tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And from my understanding, that's a good question you're asking, but the rest seem to be in good condition. But that is something I'm going to promise you that I'm going to have an evaluation done of each one of those tanks.
And the next one's about the vehicles. The Ranger you're getting rid of is an 06, 07, 05, somewhere in there, you said, 04?
Right. Is the Ford vehicle, the vehicle there is, I think, is 20.
2004.
Right. It's 2004.
Okay. So do we have similar calculator, similar spreadsheet that's putting usable life to all of our vehicles that we have?
Well, I can share this with you. I have not yet went through the detail because for this year, I can promise you, I was starting to evaluate to come up with, to analyze all the vehicles and come up with a plan. But right now, as I go through those numbers, right, I can tell you where the rolling stock is, right? It's just 10 to 15% of those rolling stocks are 4 years old. The majority of our fleet is old.
Wow. So I think that's important. Those are really important numbers and something
Right.
useful for all of us to know that, hey, next year we're going to need 10 new vehicles, not just one or whatever it may be. I think it's just advantageous that we understand what that looks like instead of it being reaction. Let's be a little
Right,
more
and what I plan to do, because it takes time to do this, but all the other stuff I have to do, but I will work with Charles and come up with, you call a distribution, like a list plan, like a management plan, what we can do in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and tell you what I find. I did it when I was in the county, how I have, so they allocate $2.1 million every year just to get rid of some of the vehicles because they're getting old. So I want to do the same thing here, but it takes time to get those information.
Absolutely. I definitely think it's important. So I know you're busy. Just add that to the list, please.
Well, I mean, but to that end, I mean, why do we not have a shared centralized center of excellence for fleet tracking? I mean, we had great views for police and fire, but yet now we're getting into fleet for here and we don't have anything. And so, so and I kind of always anchor back to the survey, verbatims that we've had, and obviously the ones that we can control through budget, equipment, fleet, some other things. But like, are one of these trucks, one of the staff was saying that one of the trucks is literally like welded at the bottom on the floor, it's that dire. So is one of these trucks that truck? Like, I want to make sure that trucks that are 20 years old and trucks that don't have AC, being in the heat that we're in here, those types of trucks are being cycled out, and we've got good equipment for our folks.
Yeah, I can adjust that. Charge, no, anything that you can adjust.
Because I mean, fleet
Right,
is
it
going
could
to be
be,
a general theme.
yeah, it can be an
across-
opinion that was written there, but I can't support that opinion, so.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Charles Stevens, Fleet Superintendent. And what you're asking, a lot of those vehicles that you're hearing that's welded at the bottom, oops, sorry about that. But a lot of those that you're hearing, that's not true. There is no vehicles that are welded at the bottom other than the sanitation trucks. There are some of the utility bodies that have been out in the rain, used over the years, different chemicals carried into the compartments of them that we have welded in new bottoms into. but the truck that they're on are still fairly decent. But there are a lot of our vehicles, about 15% of the vehicles that need to go and be replaced. And at this point in time, we are having a real fun time with Ford and our vendors on trying to get fleet vehicles. And as well as I just got a report the other day that Ford will not be sending out any Ford Rangers to fleet or commercial companies. They will only be sold to the public. So we may have to look at buying from vendors that are not on the Florida Sheriff's contract at this point to get vehicles.
Wow.
And with that, the cost is substantially higher.
I was about to say, 40,000 for an F-150. That's, I was about to say, I need to do that. That's, yeah, so that, I absolutely understand your point there.
And right now, at this point, Rob Hippler will tell you he's still waiting for a Ford Transit that we ordered in 2021. That is how backlogged they are.
Wow.
Just trying to get vehicles. We had a Ford Ranger that was canceled underneath us. That was for out there adjacent dwelling. That's why they're asking for an F-150 now. So
Okay.
that's what we're living in right now.
Understood. And I think, I mean, it'd be advantageous, I guess, to look elsewhere as we need to. I mean, we gotta do what we gotta do. I mean, everyone else is figuring this out, and we need to do the same thing. So,
Because
I mean, having that list, you said 15% around is, what are you quantifying or qualifying? Why do you say that those 15% need to go?
Because we got them from 1998 all the way to 2018.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
So these vehicles aren't logged in the fixed asset system?
They are.
They are?
They are.
So
Yes,
can we
sir.
not get I mean, that's basically what we were looking at for police and fire was,
I didn't pull that information at this time, but yes, we do. We can get that information.
Can you get that and send that to the
Yes, sir.
commission?
Yes,
They
sir.
are logged, all assets are.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, and I think just to put a fine point on this is I think we just need to come up with a plan that says, I mean, 98, that's almost an antiquity. So we need to come up with a plan that says if they're 10 years old and have X amount of miles or whatever it may be, that we're cycling them out that year. So,
Right, I'm going to add that to my project.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, on the wastewater plant operation funding code 401-3121, the wastewater plant operation is under the management of Glenn Brooks, Water Resource Manager, and staff under this group are responsible for the maintenance of one wastewater treatment plant, 3 reclaimed water treatment plant. They're also responsible for the various wastewater process treatment system, infrastructure, well mechanics, high service power pump, and other instrumentation. In addition, this group managed the industrial pretreatment program, fat and oil and grease, which is called the FOG program, and numerous environmental compliance and rules criteria. With that, if I just wanted to overview the budget highlights here, the personnel costs for the water and wastewater plant operation is 7% in personnel cost increase. Again, not out of the ordinary there. The operation cost, there's a 19% increase, which translates to $553,000. And I will address that. What is that increase about? And the capital outlay, there's a minus 0.58%, and I will go into address how the 567 costs came up with you. But regarding the operation, expense increase of 553, this was attributed to the increase in lab costs for testing, which is 15,000. Infrastructure painting, including tanks, piping, and pumps for FDP regulation, 50,000. This is normal maintenance operation work you have to do. The major item here is the draining and cleaning of upper pond liners. We have 2 ponds at our facility. We have to dewater those ponds, they are line pond, remove those sediment and inspect them to make sure that the liner is proper and there's no leaks, anything else, because they can contribute, nitrogen, everything is to the groundwater table. So we have to make sure that we inspect those ponds. It is a difficult exercise there at the facilities. We just have the 250. We have to determine the best well mechanics to do so, because we need those plants in operation, right? So we have to find out when there is a slow period to get that operation done and to perform quickly. So that funding is a major operation, but we have to do those. We cannot keep postponing it. So
How often are you required to do that?
I don't know the timeline. I'm not aware of a timeline, but Erica, if she be the compliance person, she may probably know more than I have.
Generally, we inspect the ponds visually with staff in-house annually.
Okay.
This major overhaul is currently permit required in our latest update to the wastewater permit. And that is in relation to some testing that the state did on our behalf. The last time that I have record that these were done is over 15 years ago. There's no real set time on when they have to be drained and cleaned and done doing what we're doing. We were just told that now is the time to do it because of the testing that they performed.
And what do you do with the water you're disposing of?
That's the plan. We're trying to figure out how to move it appropriately right now based on the way that the ponds are designed. Flow actually goes into one pond and out of the other. So we're trying to best figure out how to set up to be able to move the water to accommodate this process.
Is there a time frame that you have to get it done? You're saying 15 years ago, but now we're required to,
We're within a year and a half time frame to get it completed, yes.
when did they, was there a date, a drop dead date that was given to us?
It's not a drop dead date, no.
No.
It is a find time, get it done in the best way possible.
Is this the first time or the?
Yes.
Oh, it is the first time, okay.
And this is not something we have to do to all of our ponds. For some reason, this one, they just happen to
Correct.
flag for some reason.
Yes, some of the, like I said, some of the internal testing results stated this needs to be checked.
Now, is
So
this
that's what we're
for, this is only for like is it any pond that has a liner or like some of our retention areas that have?
No, this is specific to these two ponds on the wastewater plant. These
Gotcha.
are temporarily holding ponds for water that does not meet quality standards that then goes to our spray fields. So these are why these need to be inspected and cared for and looked at right now.
A little more extensively. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Right, the other difference here is $137,000 for electric rate increase. And that is a big number, but remember, we have to run the wastewater plant, the reclaim system, all those take electricity, right? And that is the difference that we pay for the electric cost increase. The other, the sludge hauling waste cost went up by $15,000. The sodium hypochlorite, $9,000. And the addition of a Parkinson filter sand to replace the sand loss in the east water reclamation filter is $30,000 and fuel increase. So these are all maintenance related stuff that were estimated, things that need to be done, right? So that's how the estimate came up, the difference of 553, 463 increase. And that is a very close match to that number. I just want to give you a feel of how the cost has been generated. In terms of the capital outlay, there is a reduction of 58% versus the previous year. And I want to explain this 567 here, how it was developed. $332,000 of this 567 is for continuing our conversion of the septic tank program in the Kaiba Glen to an independent wastewater treatment system, right? We call it on-site. And the reason why we have that, because we are predicted to get a grant from the St. John River Water Management District. They have been in contact with Erica of $500,000. So we will get the grant, and I think they're going to maybe, from what I heard, because the mayor involvement, increase it to $1 million. But right now, this estimate that we are providing here, the board will be meeting sometime in August, and that number will be finalized. But I think this $500,000 that we estimate is 332 from, because it's a 75-25 cost sharing, right? It's just a placeholder there. So of this 567, 332 It's just a placeholder I placed there. We may have to come back and increase that amount if we go up to $1 million or more. I just wanted to make sure that I stated here.
So we're budgeting best case scenario here.
Right, that's correct. So the program, once we know something that they approve, we will come back, well, to the board because we have to get the contract to be authorized and get the program running.
But that's not
That-
certain.
Yeah.
It's not certain. That's a,
In August, it is kind of certain because they have to go to the Board of Water Management for the grant. They have to go to August?
September.
Oh, in September.
well, the point being is that obviously when we first started doing this, it was under a pilot kind of concept. We've never really been presented anything after the fact to say, hey, here's how this is performing, here's additional benefit, here's, we should continue this program or not.
That's a very good question. What has happened if you look at the previous year budget in 2023, we had a similar amount, 332,000. We never used it because one of the questions that you're asking there, we had wanted to know, is this pilot program work? We are putting this in the BMP area, which is the Pest Management Action Plan area. We want to make sure that we are getting the credit for the nitrogen removal, right, that they're saying this is doing. So we got a letter, and this will translate the conversation with the water management. And the mayor was highly involved because we meet at DEP with them at the meeting. And he insists that we need an analysis to be done on the system. And what they wrote back, that they are going to credit each one of these systems that is in place 8 pound nitrogen per year per system. So we get in the credit of 8 pound nitrogen per year for each of those systems. So it is applied to our BMAP.
It's about 80%, right?
Right, but 80%, that's correct.
80%.
80% removal.
And so, just to go, because I don't think Commissioner Nesta was on the board when we did the initial plan. There's two ways of trying to reduce your BMAP. One is to go, I know Orange County is doing a lot of septic to sewer in the Wekiwa area, and at the cost of between $50,000 and $70,000 a home. This plan is 15.5 total, gives you 80% of the benefit for a quarter of the cost, less than a quarter of the cost. So I think the bang for your buck is for those bigger lots, bigger neighborhoods, it makes a whole lot more sense to go to the on-site system, even though you're not getting quite the efficiency, but you're doing it for a whole lot less money. You can do a whole lot more systems, and the pounds of nitrogen that you're getting out of the BMAP will be greatly enhanced by this program versus a septic to sewer. Does that make sense?
Was that the program at Wekiwa Glen where we
Correct.
went from
Yes.
septic to septic?
Right.
So
Advanced, yes.
how many homes are in Wekiwa Glen? How much?
One.
Like over 200?
I think they're close to 200. We have done on the 30 of those facilities in the pilot program. They're close to 200, I think.
And
So how many were done?
37?
Yeah, we have done 30 of them,
So 30 out of 200.
100, right?
Was
And-
that done under a grant?
Yeah, under a grant.
Were we matching any
25,
funds?
25%.
What?
25% is a matching grant, 75% from St. John, 25% matched by the city,
From the
city
city?
of Apopka, right?
So how are we continuing the program? Have we run out of the grant money?
No, it was paused is because we want to make sure that we are receiving credit because as Commissioner Becker said, it was a pilot program. And we want to make sure from all the testing and the result that we will be credited to put in that system. Because if we will not be credited, it will be a moot point for us to continue with it. So they have sent us a letter or an email verify that we will be credited because they independently analyze the results.
So they did confirm.
You're right, they do confirm
Okay.
that it's right.
Okay. All right.
All right, so that is a 332 there. There's a $182,000 left to be verified what that fund is used for. And of that 32,000 is used to replace the 2007 Ford Ranger. And the remaining 150 and plus, it is used for, we have a plan to replace a high service power replacement pump, and that cost is in the range of 150. And that is what that difference of 567 accounts for. Now you see that on the comment column here, you have decrease include the following item. These items, and I just want to clear the air here, these items was all no retrofit, right? They were not like maintenance retrofit, no request in. So they does not fall under the 401, they fall under the 403. So these, I just place it because they were, when we were doing the budget process, there were some mistake where we reallocate them. So these are all 403 items. Right, that's correct. So is there any question on this that I could answer?
So this was 401.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next, which is water maintenance.
Water maintenance. Just give me.
And water maintenance fund code is 401-3141.
Sorry,
and-
water maintenance.
Right, and the water maintenance is under the management of Jorge Garcia, the utility maintenance manager. And staff under this group are responsible for the maintenance of water main, reuse main, fire hydrant, water valve, and all utility locates. In addition, this group manages the cross connection, backflow prevention, water meter, and fire hydrant program. As you can see from the budget highlights, here, the personnel costs just went up by 6%. If you look at the trend, they range between 3 to 6%, 7%. That is the range. There is nothing uncommon here. In terms of the operation expense, is 2%, and that 2% contribute is a net increase of 2%. It contributes to $29,249 increase in that line. And the major increase of that 29 is attributed to rental and lease for the Florida Central Railroad, because we have pipe under those roads, right? And that we have to pay at least for them, and that is an increased cost. And also there's a material price increase that contribute to that net increase of $29,000 there. With respect to the capital outlay, you see there is a major increase of 207 there. And I want to explain that $1.8 million and what it's for. The $1.8 million is for the replacement of a 1992 Kenworth dump truck, which is $175,000 estimated. We had that request in 2 years ago. Last year, we didn't get it. So this year, we hope, because the truck is getting older and older. So we need that dump truck. It's a 1992, so it needs to be replaced. We also have a replacement for a 2013 F-350 well utility truck. And that truck, the engine is shot. It cannot be repaired, and we have $75,000 in there for that. The major increase that this fund in 104 is a $1.4 million to enable the replacement of 1,500 feet of asbestos pipe spanning from Main Avenue to Apopka, close to the Apopka Entrance High School. The plan is 60% done, and the public construction cost is $1.2 million. Remember, we started this program last year, right, when we came here. The first leg of that program, we just select that segment, which is less than 0.4 of a mile, because it's a crowded utility area to see what the cost is. So the plan will be ready sometime in September, October, and we needed $1.2 million to continue with the replacement. This asbestos pipe program is also subject to a grant of $2.5 million from the state. And I think we are close to wrap up that grant from the state. The state is giving us $2.5 million grant, and so we're close to wrap up to getting that grant.
The state was giving you.
Well, it's a federal grant.
It's a federal
It's a
grant,
2.5 million.
2.5.
And we matched
that
2.5.
still has not come in?
I think we are close to have the I dot and the T cross in it.
We've utilized most of the funds is what he's referring to. We have probably, when I last looked, we were about 1.3 that we were planning to use in the FY '23 budget.
And
So-
that was for the replacements of all the asbestos pipes downtown.
Is this the 2.5 asbesto? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
asbesto?
it's 2.5 asbestos grant.
This is not that one.
No, no, no.
No, this is the other one.
This is not,
No, this is not that one.
because that one was just recent, right? That was
Yes,
about
that's recent. That's-
2 months, 3 months ago,
Yes, ma'am. That's coming up.
right? The asbestos one.
Yeah, that
we're
one is coming
replacing.
up. This is the other grant.
When you say the other one, which one is?
Another grant that we received for
Right.
DEP.
At the last presentation, the last budget presentation, it was told that we will be applying for that grant, which is $2.5 million. This happened a year ago. We were earmarked to get that grant. It's just that all the I and T is not crossed yet, but we are close to get it. It already passed to appropriation. So it's just a matter of time for us to get that grant,
Okay.
right, the 2.5. I know the last budget presentation, the question were asked of me, if you do not get this grant, what would you be doing? Well, regardless if you get the grant or not, we have to replace this pipe, this asbestos pipe, right? The grant is giving us a cushion to continue to do this. So this is the first pilot program we started, and the cost came up 1.4, close to 1.2. We asked for 1.4, and that is what is accommodating there. So coming in September, the 90% plan will be in. I will able to put it out to bid. I need that fund in there so I can bid the project out and to get that segment well replaced.
And that's on Martin Street, correct?
That is, yes.
Okay. Because this is, I had emailed you about this a few months ago, and I had said, no, you guys are working on something. You're like, no, we're not working on anything on Martin, but
Right. It may
you're
be,
technically not working on it. It's being,
it's a design, right?
Correct.
It's design, but what you have asked, we see some flags there, and those are utility locates. We're trying to figure out, so that may be done by our consultant survey,
Gotcha.
or it can be done by other development around there. I was not sure, so I responded.
Yeah,
I think,
no,
I
not-
think we
so I
respond to you, not sure what that is, but
Okay.
basically you do have to do some sounding, to find out what the depth of that, because one of the things with this asbestos pipe where it's located and why the cost is this, because we were looking at it, the constructability of this will be a difficult exercise because some of these pipes run under the road. So it will be a phased type of construction, and when it bid out, we have to deal with the contractor to figure out if we can use segment of jack and bore or open cut. So the price that was provided to you with 1.4, right, kind of incorporate some concept. It may go down, or the price may still hold. Now, I do not know what the price will be come in October, but I can tell you right now, the probable estimate that the consultant had given me is 1.2 million. We're asking for 1.4.
okay. And then do you know, kind of more salient details on that one, do you know if that's mostly on the north side of Martin, south side of Martin? Main and, well, which side of that, or is it just right in the middle of that street? The Apopka side, the high school side? Gotcha, so on the north side there, okay. Gotcha. Okay. And then in reference to, I'm seeing on here backflow, residential backflow replacement program, 200K. Are we just taking on that expense now to replace those? So what are we budgeting 200,000
I would
for?
assume that's a pass-through, right? Yeah. We're just seeing the debit side of the ledger here. With the assumption, if we spend 200,000 on backflow, we're getting reimbursed.
Reimbursed,
200,000 by the.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I see.
By the residents, yeah.
Thank you. All right, and how's that, can you give me an update on the backflow side of things? Where are we at with that? Compliance-wise, what does that look like?
Compliance-wise, to my understanding, and George said you can answer it, we are good with the compliance. If we met all the requirements, right? What had happened, we have sent out the first notice, as you know, when we were here with the presentation. We then sent out second notice to people. Some respond, some did not respond. So what we are doing now, we are segmenting neighborhood, subdivision. Right now, we are working on Rock Spring Ridge, right? So we're working on subdivision by subdivision to make sure that we comply. Right now with that program, we are close to about 50% done, right? We still have a long way to go, another 50%, but we are not obligated by any mandate, right? Our mandate was to inform the resident, right, and to make sure that we are doing diligent inspection and replacement as it needed, and that's what we are complying. And we have to submit those information regularly, like every year to the FDP to make sure that we are following the process.
Okay. So do we, let's say a resident doesn't do it. We have a lot of corporate owners that are rentals. So let's assume, and they ignore a lot of things that may come from the city, whether it's code enforcement or HOA issues, whatever it may be. Let's say they never, ever replace it. They don't respond to us in any capacity. Are we bound by anything? Do we get in trouble for that, for them not being in compliance?
We don't get in trouble, but we did put it in our manual that if they don't respond,
This.
Just do we?
Which one is
Gotcha. And does it go like on a water bill, or just it's a separate bill that just goes in?
for water maintenance?
Gotcha, okay.
3141.
There's two water maintenance, one is 41.
So then, have we had to do that? Yeah, I guess we were not at that part yet.
I was looking for it. Utility, sanitation.
that was a shorter deadline, and the ones who didn't respond to the door pad, and when we commenced.
And that's the purpose when we adopt the ordinance, we put that clause, that specific note in there.
Just wait. Water
Okay.
maintenance.
So, I guess the point is too, though, that we do have to enforce compliance. We can't just let it go. So like, if we can't just let, if we know that somebody is not in compliance.
I think that is best management practice to do, to carry out the enforcement.
Before we leave the subdivision, everybody in there is going to be up.
Sure, but my point is DEP requires us to make sure this is taken care of.
And according to the consent order, yes, we had a commission, that's what we're doing.
Can we come?
George,
George, come up here.
because we have a dedicated audience that's listening and they don't hear you in the audience.
So there was a couple stipulations on the consent order that we had to do, which the first one was send out all these letters. So we send out massive letters to all the residents. After that, it was to update our manual and our ordinance. We did that as well. And then the last one was to commence the testing and ensuring that the customers are doing it. So we're still giving them the ability to seek out outside contractors, but at that point, if they don't, then we can begin to do it for them. So it is we're doing by subdivision just to make sure that we strategically are finishing them and we make sure that this subdivision is done. You know, with that said, I think that's the best way to do it, because even if we seek out a contractor, there is no material out there to be able to do them all at one time. You know, we're having a lot of constraints in just ordering material. Right now, we have 2,000 backlogs on back order. We still have inventory to do them as they come up, or the list that we're working on, but we still have a long line of back orders that nobody can get them.
Sure.
You know, it's not just us, it's just across the board.
Okay.
Across the board.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other question, on one note, I just want to make here is, and there's increased funding here. There was no funding for this CAT 289 skid steer. So just a note, because the funding we have could not accommodate that. So this is then delayed. It will be postponed for next year.
What's the impact of that?
I really don't think it will have any major impact for 1 year if I wait for 1 year. I think it can still work.
Just one Scribner's error, just because it's so prevalent. On the 5201, can someone fix, it says medium landscaping, and I think they were trying to attempt to say beautification, just in case this is public facing. I think it's prevalent across all the items.
On 5201,
Yeah, the 5201.
is that a description that y'all put in? Is it a description of an item, or is it something else that you?
Well, it's the account name.
Oh, okay,
It's supposed to
yes.
say median and
Okay.
then beautification, but
Okay.
anyway. Just a small little adjustment.
No problem.
Right, all right, and the next item here is the wastewater maintenance fund code 401-3171.
41,
The wastewater Maintenance is under the management of Jorge Garcia, the utility maintenance manager, and his staff under this group are responsible for the maintenance of lift stations, force main valve, gravity mains, ARV, reclaim valve, manholes, and sewer connection services. This group also managed the odor control and bypass pump inspection program. They also perform camera inspection on sewer distribution system to prevent sanitary sewer overflow and conduct maintenance repair as well as service call to customer. The budget highlight here is follows. The personnel costs, again, 7%, consistent with the team. The operation cost is just 1%, and that 1% net increase is just $17,489. And this was mainly cost to Duke Energy costs, right, which is take up the big portion of $16,775. And their rental lease cost for railroad crossing is $3,000. So that accommodated for that 1% increase. In the capital outlay, there is $1.6 million there. And that amount of money there is principally spent to perform maintenance service purely. For miscellaneous sanitary sewer lines, $100,000. For the wastewater collection system pipeline rehabilitation, we have $200,000 there. For lift station renewal program to fix anything that goes, because we have a whole bunch of lift station, we may need to replace the pump, as we go on, right? Things may fail, right? We have close to $1 million for that program in there. And then we have another $220,000 for other miscellaneous panel, well, replacement and other stuff. This is all maintenance related for lift station and pipe rehabilitation, failure, and everything else that is routine maintenance. So we have the funding to get it done, right? So that is what that program is about there. We do have a lift station, number 017. This lift station, we are really, it is a regional lift station. It means it's a very old regional lift station, built back in 1971. And the buildings are outdated, and this needs to be replaced. The lift station is located in the vicinity of Frank Carlton Center. The probable construction cost was $3.6 million, right, in order to replace it, to abandon that, replace everything there. There is no available funding for that, so what we do, we have pushed back it for next year, because we are 60%, we should get the 100% plan by the end of September. But we were hoping to have that $3.6 million to start with the bidding and construction, right? But there is no funding available there. So that is one of the decrease or the pushback project there. There's a project there that I just wanted to state here, Plymouth Well Sorrento Water Main Extension. This is a 403 project. This project involves a 3/8 reclaim line from Leicester to Pumpkin, but it's a new line, so it should not be charged under the 401. It is removed to be under the 403. Well funding. And with that, that really conclude the wastewater maintenance fund code 401-3171, and I can answer any question or staff that you may have.
How many lift stations do we have in the portfolio now?
We have 160 lift stations.
160?
Yeah.
160. Okay. And then what's the useful life on that before you have to get to the conversation around replacing versus just normal maintenance?
George, you have any answer to that?
20 years. Right now, we just completed doing the
George?
Yeah.
It's about 20 years for lift station, but it can vary depending on the H2S that goes to it, or different variables can change the the lifespan of the lift station. So what we're trying to finalize is prioritizing those lift stations with the assistance of consultant. So they came in, we gave them the list, we went in there and we coded all the different components, electrical panels, pumps, wet wells, and gave it a rating system. So at that point, now they gave us a prioritization list on where we should begin and commence the replacement. So now that we have that, now we can now put together a plan so that we can design and build. So it's more of an itemized. Every lift station does not need everything done, so you don't have to do a complete rehabilitation. So now you can go in there and you itemize it and say, okay, we need a new panel, we need new wells, not wells, but pumps, and coat the well, piping and different things. And even to the addition to adding generators to the lift station, so that way they can have.
Yeah, I kind of equate it to a car. I mean, you can replace the battery, you can replace the alternator and stuff like that, but eventually you replace the car unless you want to turn it into an antique. And
there is that
way,
list. There is that list that you do a complete overhaul. So those are the ones that have a capacity. Those are part of the CIP where you don't just repair it, you actually replace it, similar to what lift station 17. That's what we're doing.
So the full replacement of a lift station, like in a standard run-of-the-mill neighborhood, would cost how much? Once you're past all the maintenance and you say, hey, I need to do this renewal, how much would
Well, this one is a master lift station, is 3.5. I say if the cost is accurate, it should be around 2.5, something like that, to do a complete haul. And then, it takes the analysis. You got to do, you plan for the future. You got to do what's the projected growth. And you don't want to just put a lift station to replace what is current. You want to make sure that you put the adequate pumps and the wet well, so that way it meets the future growth.
Well, so said differently, if like my neighborhood got maybe 200 homes in it, we've got a lift station that fails and you need to replace it. How much would that cost, roughly speaking? Is that?
Yours is one of the fairly newer ones.
Yeah.
But I think that one is probably, to do all the electrical pumps and all that, it's probably right under $1 million, probably, just to do all of that, because pumps are up there, panels are as well, and then it's just the piping and, everything has gone up drastically in the last couple of months, and it's just a lot. Yeah. We reviewed some plans, and I think what we seen, Orange County was doing a big rehabilitation on one of their stations, and their price was 2.5, and that was several years ago. And so
So the point I'm getting at is, so we've got the line item here for lift station renewal and replacement program. So my assumption is it's a program, it's a recurring thing. We're putting money into this program to do, so they have a pot of money, or in this case, maybe specifically for this one. But again, if we've got 160 lift stations with a useful life of 20 years, on paper, we should be replacing 8 a year. Or there could be a potential to need to replace 8 per year.
yeah.
So have you thought about in that regard to say, are we putting money into accounting for this, putting that money away, so that way when we do have to renew these things? Because I don't see that level of kind of allocation on the budget here.
Right. Recently, we just received a study that was done on all these lift stations that George was explaining. And they provide us the prioritization of these lift stations. They have the age of them. They have a matrix, right? And not only the lift station, the electrical panel, the mechanical, the pumps, right? They made an assessment based on that. And from that, we have a plan now that we can come back and strategically budget more better in the future. This plan was just finished, 2 months ago? And they were working on this for about a year, right? So it just wrapped up right now. So that funding that we have there, because we have 160 lift stations, pumps may go out, electrical stuff may happen, right? We have the appropriated fund there to address the immediate need. But Commissioner Becker, what you're saying is correct. Once we review that plan and finalize it, we're going to have a better program, right, when we come back, how much we can appropriate in future, right, to replace how many of these lift stations, because not all of them may be bad, right? There may be 20. So we will have to have a program of those 20. How are we going to replace them, and what would be the cost trend? So we have the report now. We have not dived into it yet, right? But all those are planned that I'm focusing to do to have a better master plan system over there, not only for lift station, but we talk about the fleets, right? So that I can have a better estimate of the cost going forward for the next 5 years. So
Yeah,
that-
because even if you haircut that 8 number down to 2, for example, we're still underfunded.
We're still right. I agree. Right. But again, we just have to study. We have to take time to digest it, ask quick questions, put the plan together, and make sure we have a program to replace them if it's needed to do so. Now, in terms, I just want to make one clarification here. I know George said it's 20 years for a lift station. There's standard market, index on this, right? And I can go back and research it because everything have a lifespan between 20 to 50 years, right? So George, from his experience in the field, mentioned 20 years, but it could be a little bit longer than 20 years. But I just want to make sure I clarify that point here, right? Because there is a market range for lift station, for concrete pipe, for everything else out there. So I just want to make that point.
And if I can clarify, they have about $1 million already in the FY23 budget that there's 0 obligations thus far. And those funds will roll over to the 24.
Right, and the reason why there were 0 obligations to those, not only because we're waiting for the study, right? We also don't have a vendor available, so we were looking for piggyback vendors as well, right? So that when the program is in place, we can go to some piggyback vendors to come up and get this work done. So hope with that rollover funding with the study, we can be more aggressively well handle that.
Mrs. Sherman, sorry to interrupt. Where are we seeing rollover funds?
You don't see it at this particular point in time. We bring that back as a budget amendment in FY24 after we close out the year, as we close it out the year. It's usually, I think last year came in January. That's a standard process because you're trying to capture
But we could
everything.
estimate it in some capacity now of where we'll be.
Well, if you,
I guess
Well, put it this way, I would view that as a non-negotiable, considering that we're going to be discussing setting a trim notification.
Yeah, I guess how do I make a decision where we're at if I know that we have a 7-figure number rolling over and this one is that's great to some extent. So it's, I think the point's been made multiple times and I don't mean to make it again, but we're not seeing the full picture, I guess, is the difficult part of making decisions right now.
okay. Well, the rollovers, like I said, normally come in January. Last year, you had about 18 million in rollovers. That was across the city.
Sure.
Okay? So that included the general fund and some of the other funds. And that included some of the major capital projects that they did not get started. It did not complete in FY22 that rolled over to FY23.
Because
So
Again,
these
going-
things are already factored in the budget for anything that rolls over into 24 is already budgeted in 23. So I am reflecting that impact when I'm looking at their reserves.
But I don't see it.
I know it, but I will share that with you.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I'm going to give you a detailed view of the reserves when I do the general fund, but I will share the other funds as well.
Okay.
I can give you numbers now, but again, I can share it with you if you want it now. I'll share it with you.
No, we can stay on track, I guess, but.
like I was discussing yesterday, the month to actual, or the budget to actual report, the 9-month, if you look at the amount of revenues that are going to be under what was projected, and you look at the expenses under what was projected, the net of that conversation, according to the 9-month budget to actual, was like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 34 million or something
Yes,
like that.
yes, it was.
I mean, that's
so-
actually been pretty consistent for the last few months too, that we were going to track that way.
Right, and so then you kind of bifurcate that number to stuff that has a capital earmark already to it. So you take that out. But then our point needs to be is how much of that is operating, we just didn't use it from an operational perspective, and that should be money on the table. And
Right,
that's where we
exactly.
need to, that's where we need to know, because again, we've talked through the past 2 days of things that aren't budgeted that we've wanted to reinsert. And we need to know the net of that conversation, because it can't just be when we get to the thing at 7 or so, all of this is additive and we're not accounting for any of that, and then it becomes this political conversation around millage.
Well, that is the projection at this point in time for the general fund, the 15 million that you're referring to. I would estimate that with the year-end adjustments, maybe I would be safer to say up to 10 million at this point in time, because we do have some year-end numbers that are not being factored at this time. So I would be comfortable with saying we would come in with an excess of about 10 million on the general fund side. With your 403 funds, those are all restricted funds, okay? That's the capital stuff. If they don't finish those projects, they roll over, just like, and I wanted to share this with you.
When you say 403, you're talking impact fees.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, those roll over. Basically, where you have some is in the 401 fund and general fund, where you have some of those operating things that have an impact. Right now, what I can recall with the 401 fund, you probably had about 3 million in adjustments, amendments and rollovers, okay? So that impacted that reserve fund from the balance at 22. So that's why I'm saying that you're looking at by using an additional 9 million in reserves for this year, and they used 7 million last year to balance the 23 budget, it's running into a negative for the 401 fund. General fund, we are fine, but the 401 fund is one in question. The impact fee fund, based on the audited numbers, we're looking good there now. So that, once I broke those numbers out, we're about 18 million. So there's an opportunity to come back and look at some additional projects should they need additional funding, and they were provided additional funding in this budget for some of those projects. But some of the projects, while the numbers didn't make sense to Commissioner Becker, that base budget included the adopted budget for 23. You had to back that out because they added it in again. So we had to back that out so it wouldn't be duplicated, and we only gave them an increase if they asked for it.
Okay.
Next, division is the design engineer division. This utility design engineering division is under the management responsibility of Richard Arp, the city engineer. The division is responsible for the utility planning and design, utility construction management, GIS and asset management, as well as handling of all CIP. To date, this division is handling 26 capital projects that is in design, that are in design stage, reviewed 35 plus subdivision plans, had wrapped up more than 8 construction projects, which was designed in-house, and is now gearing up to manage 7 to 10 new CIP construction projects. There are currently 11 positions, and we have 5 vacancies at this time. Looking at the budget here, highlights personal costs, 8%. Operation costs went up 65%, which translate to about $60,000, and capital outlay is zero. For that $60,000 in operating expense, that was attributed to updating the water and wastewater model to incorporate new development flow. And what I meant here, when a developer is coming in to develop a site, and they are coming between, say, 2 systems, they want to find what the flow will be here if they're connecting to our system. So we usually in the past did interpolation, right? So this is the flow, this is where you connect to the flow here, or this is the pressure. What we are doing, we are asking that development to provide this information to our consultant who can model it real time, and giving them the right amount of flow and the pressure. They are going to reimburse us for that cost. So this is just a $50,000 placeholder. Once a consultant wants those information, because any information we provide to them, they are saying that our lift station pump is too small because of the information you got from us, right? Because, from point to point, you can do an interpolation and given that information, but that does not accurately model the whole constraint within the system. So by modeling the real-time stuff, right, you can give them an exact number of what the size, what the flow, what is the pressure, and everything else. So they are paying for that fee. We just, when they access for that request, they provide us what are those hydraulic information that they want. We provide it to our consultant because of the $50,000 They provide back the answers, and we bill them the costs. And that cost where the consultant is passing to us. So this is just a placeholder for us to perform that service. That is a better way to have an integrated cumulative approach in our system. So that is what that major increase is. And the rest, 10,000, and the rest 5,000 or 10,000 is due to upgrade of a software. As everybody know, we're using this ArcGIS new software, and some staff have to do some training. We just have a new GIS staff. So a portion of that goes for them, and actually for some training, because this group has several professional staff that we have to hire, and they have to have license training, training for their license. So that is a combination of the $10,000 there. So with that, any question?
Where are we, that program or that $50,000, is that referenced on here?
I think that was in our breakdown, right?
I'm just not seeing it there, but
Where, in which sheet you're looking at?
we're 3410 right now, right?
3410.
3410.
50 for which one?
I guess the program, the additional software, I guess we have
No,
an
no,
engineer
not the
that's coming
software.
in?
It's the $50,000 is for like consultant services, right?
Gotcha, that we're gonna be
Right.
reimbursed.
That we be reimbursed, right. That is for
Where-
consultant services.
So
It
I
should be
just
under
don't
professional service.
see that.
Is that under the professional service? For
Right, you should be under,
100,000?
The 100,000?
right. So we asked for 50,000 more, if we look at the 50,000 more to
Gotcha.
accommodate the service.
Okay,
So it's 100 total.
So that's what it caused a difference of
got it.
60,000.
I'm there, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm missing that.
Right, the next one is the utility plant maintenance. And the utility plant, well, maintenance is managed by Glenn Brook, the water resource manager, and staff under the group. Staff under this group are responsible for preventative and corrective utility plant maintenance and with respect to computerized maintenance management system and supervisory control and data acquisition, which is called SCADA system. On the 5 water plant, 1 water treatment plant, and 3 reclamation treatment, as well as a pump and other instrumentation. This group is comprised of a total of 8 personnel, and currently there is no vacancy. This is a specialized group because how these systems work, they all work with computerized, talking to each other, system of electrical relays, data management. So it's a highly electrical system that these people are trained and programmed to handle this. The system is called the supervisory control and data acquisition, called the SCADA system. That's the software we have, that's the system. So you have to be very versatile in using that and capable of understanding how to troubleshoot when some issue occur, right? So with that, if you look at the budget highlight, you're going to see that the personal cost is 5%. The operation cost increased by 10%, which translates to $57,000. And this group also maintain the grounds. So where you have the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, you have big spaces there. So they're responsible for ground maintenance. So that $57,000 increase, we're able, because we just add the spray field, mowing, and landscaping to that group. So it would cost $10,000 for them to do so. And also, we have $42,000 allocated there for increased additional preventative maintenance on vehicle and ground equipment, PPE, safety equipment, and software renewal, and additional training. And that is what that increase for. The capital outlay, there is an increase there as well of $79,000. And that increase is for, we have a bush hog that is old, and that's a mowing equipment, stuff that is old that we wanted to be replaced. I don't have the age of that. I think it's more than 12 years old, right? And it's $30,000 to be replaced. And also there is a bleach skid replacement at Sheila Oak that we need to be replaced as well, and that is $35,000. I think it's about $35,000 for that, and that would accommodate that increase in the capital outlay. The bush hog and the bleach skid replacement. That's
So is this another example of just a remnant from last budget year, the new Ford F-550 crane truck replacement? Is that still needed, or is that something from last year that shouldn't be on here?
I think we're in the process of getting it. It was removed, right? Oh, it was removed.
We had it allocated, but it was removed. And it's a
Are we gonna hear this one?
It was removed, right?
Yeah.
It was removed. For 2013, well, the bush hog is 2013, and that's what we want to replace.
So there's no need for the crane truck? Is that what you're? Sorry, I'm confused. So you need the crane truck and it just got removed from the budget?
Yeah, because of budgetary. We push it
What's
out,
the cost on that?
I think it's 30,000, 35, what is it, 30,000? No, what do you cost?
550?
No,
It was
170, 170, right, 170, right. But it was removed.
Okay.
Is that the one that you said that Ford is no longer, supplying work trucks?
Those come from a specialized vendor, like Nap Hide.
I'm sorry, only because we have a dedicated audience.
Those would mostly go through a specialized vendor like Nap Hide or Redding, Pellfinger. They're the ones that supply the crane body. They can also supply the cabin chassis.
Okay.
And what's the impact of not doing that? That's been, yeah.
Well, wear and tear will be continuing, the tendency that, you have an engine failure kind of car. But I think from talking to Glenn when we remove it, I don't think it has any major impact. It can work for another year, is my understanding.
Again, I hear a lot of that when I ask these questions. It's, oh, it won't be that bad. But let's just, I'm not saying that you're not being totally forthright. I'm just, if it has a material impact on the people doing the job that are using that equipment, I would really, really like to know. So if you're saying
Right.
from where you sit that this won't have an impact next budget year, I'll take you for your word. I just want to make sure that everybody's kind of aligned to that point.
Right. What I can tell you, when we did the cut of this project, the supervisor, Glenn Brook, was there, and he unanimously, agreed with us that this can be removed.
What was the cost of that?
170.
170.
170 for that
Yes,
truck?
ma'am, 170,000.
Okay, I put one.
So with that conclude the utility fund segment of the presentation. I just wanted to move on to the general fund 001 fleet maintenance.
001.
And the fleet maintenance is under the management of Charles Stevenson, fleet superintendent. And staff under this group are responsible for the maintenance and repair of all city vehicles and motorized equipment. And they're also responsible for preparing bids for acquisition of vehicle for the city. There are 13 full-time positions in this group, and currently we have no vacancy. If you look at the budget highlight here, the personal cost is 5%. The operation cost is just 1%, very insignificant increase of $1,260 for janitorial services, and water rate will increase. The only increase you have is for a capital outlay of $50,000, because Charles is requesting that he wants a cat forklift of 500 pounds, and that cost is $50,000 there that he's asking for.
So we're back at this one.
And how many employees you say was in that division?
That division have 13 full-time employees.
So now all the repairs, so this is a citywide shared service, right?
That's correct.
So fleet maintenance for all vehicles.
Fires, right.
Their maintenance costs are baked into their own budgets, correct? That would then come to this.
You're right.
Cost center, so to
It's every
speak.
department appropriate for the maintenance.
So I'm gonna, this is a weird question, but just because people have made a comment about the whole ACs in the vehicles and stuff like that. Do we have proper budget to make sure all of our vehicles that should have AC have properly working AC? I mean, we're in the state of Florida. I just want to make sure that
In July.
all of our vehicles that should have AC have a properly functioning AC. I want to make sure that we have the budget for that.
George,
Charles.
I will answer.
This is like,
That is a good question. The reason being is air conditioners go out all the time. So I can't, my crystal ball doesn't work and I can't tell you when it's gonna go out or when it ain't.
Yeah,
But-
and I'm not saying 100% uptime all the time. It's not like Rob's world in terms of software, but just
Exactly.
yeah.
But as far as ACs, most of our vehicles all have air conditioning. Some of them just came from the factory without air conditioning. We do have a couple of them out there. But for the most part, I would say 95% of the fleet, their air conditions work.
here it is, I found
And
it.
if they don't, we bring them in and fix them. But,
So I just want to ask you, this budget allows you and other, all fleet, as long as they want the AC and it gets the work order and it goes through your process of maintaining the vehicle.
yes, sir, as long as they have it in their fleet maintenance line, we can fix their air conditioning.
Thank you.
All right, and that concludes the fleet presentation. The next presentation will be done by Richard Arp, Stormwater. So Richard, you're in deck here.
Which one is that one? Stormwater?
This is Fund One, good evening, I'm Richard Earp, City
120.
Engineer for Stormwater, so this is Fund 120-3151.
Okay, give me a moment as we go through all these pages here. I don't have 402. Go ahead, Richard, I will find it.
So the Stormwater Division is responsible for stormwater infrastructure and the city's pollution prevention program. It provides planning and design of flood control protection, water quality control, and water quality control of the drainage system. This division is also responsible for cleaning and repair of the city's drainage system, including maintenance and removal of sediment from retention ponds. The first line is personnel cost. That's been larger than some of the other ones. Those are new professional positions that we've hired this year. So their retirement is, almost $10,000. Health and life insurance is almost $23,000. And in this division, we have 4 positions and with 1 vacancy right now. The operating expenses line, let's see, I'll scroll up so you can see it. It's a 69% increase.
Excuse me, Richard.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, the fifth page. The fifth page.
You see that I'm still looking for it, right?
It's the fifth page. You gotta look at the fund. But it's the fifth page.
It's the 5th page
From that day 3. The
from,
fifth. Go under day 3 and go 5 pages.
okay, page by page. Yeah. And I thank you, Blanche, because you saw me looking for this
Yes.
5th page. There
Kind
it
of went in a
is.
different order. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Found it, thank you.
Okay, so I'm on this operating expenses line, 69% increase. That's $446 almost $1,000 increase over last year, and that's attributed to an increase in the video inspection and cleaning of outfall pipes for $50,000. There's some street sweeping and pond maintenance increases for $200,000, and just the overall drainage system maintenance of $170,000. In the capital outlay line, you'll see that increases by 186%, and that is primarily for $70,000 additional dollars in drainage system repair, And in this case, the two professional MS4 inspectors and the city engineer are all sharing the same truck. So we've got a $60,000 F-150 4x4 truck. And we need 4x4 because those inspectors are going to all the new construction sites and making sure they're not polluting the surrounding neighbors while they're building new construction. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Well, first I wanted to give a big thank you, because there was a resident in Rock Springs Ridge who had some issues with stormwater runoff impacting houses that were kind of below the road surface. It was going in garages and so forth. So Mr. Ortiz and Mr. Budu came out there, and Mr. Vavrick met with them. And from my understanding, I've already gotten video of a hard rainfall that system appears to be doing what it was intended to do based off your solution. So thank you very much. And that's kind of the money at work, right? So that's a testament to what can be done in a very quick time. And again, I'll just ask a very similar question because, and someone Dr. who's in the room too, had brought pictures of some ponds that had gone into disrepair and things like that. Is that more of a budget kind of concern, people concern in terms of staff to be able to do full coverage of maintaining all of our ponds to make sure that they're, doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of that runoff?
Well, the city has really neglected or not given as much attention to the stormwater system for 20, 30, 40 years. I don't know how long. And so with the increase in the stormwater utility fee, which you'll discuss during your budget hearings. I know last summer we had the fellow from Ralph Tillis give a nice long presentation to support the increase in fees. This budget only assumes that the first year increase in the stormwater utility fees, and we'll talk about the other recommendations of that stormwater utility rate study during the budget hearings, and then probably later this year.
So I guess, and I don't know what your kind of cycle is to monitor. Like case in point, I had someone from my own neighborhood talk about some drains that were clogged on Lester Road. There was the other pond on Lester Road as well. And that's just one small part of the city. And knowing how quickly vegetation and all the plant life can grow in Florida, do you feel like you can cover each one of the areas that we are responsible for maintaining probably on a frequency greater than an annual basis? I mean, I would think that would have to maybe even be quarterly. I don't know. But do you have the right staff we're never going to be perfect, I get that, but it should be the rare occasion that a resident has to tell us that a drain is completely clogged and not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Well, the real honest answer is, since we haven't raised stormwater utility fees or for a long time, we're very reactionary as it is now. I mean, we're trying to be proactive as the fee increases over the next several years, as was recommended with Mr. Thomas last summer. And y'all agreed to move forward with, we're going to gear up into that and slowly begin to turn this program into a more proactive program. But right now, it is largely reactive.
But the stormwater rates that were approved, though, do we get that? I mean, if they're not even to what is needed to support it, we probably need to go back to that conversation. Because ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is all of these things that this department is responsible for, you feel like you have the proper budget to not be reactive but proactive. That's the idea. So why wouldn't we, like our whole intent is to set a budget so that we can do what people expect of us, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, Commissioner Becker, that's a very good question. If you look at the funding currently that the stormwater section have, the funding is very inadequate for us to be proactive. It's a reactive. If you're saying that all these storm systems have to be cleaned up, all these inlet, we are reactive because when we know that the flooding is a concern, somebody call us. But we don't have, if the stormwater section do not have like the equipment or the required resources. This was something prevalent since I came in the city that I've learned going back in the past. There are many retention ponds, many exfiltration trench system here that has been neglected for years and years. And for you to fix those, you have to get at least more than a couple $1 million, right, in order to fix that. Looking at the utility funding rate, right, increase, are only going to give you incremental increase. You have to find some additional funding if you want to be very proactive in maintaining all the system. Because to be honest with you, some money have to put up front, right, in order to evaluate all the system, get a master plan up and to fix them. I can tell you from my experience working in the county, when I took over the job there, right, there were a lot of flooding and disrepair. We came up with a plan with consultants. We identified them, and funding was sought out, right? In the time that I was there, right, between 10 years, we spent more than $100 million in repair, fixing, and redo the flooding situation there. Now, I do not know where they found the funding from, what cost, but I can tell you in the city of Apopka with the 35 square mile plus, right? Right now, there is not enough funding for us to be proactive.
Yeah, and that's concerning, right? Because so here's my thing, like if like inlets or drains or ponds, there's going to be things that you have to be reactive to. I get that. So, but like if an inlet has a whole bunch of vegetation that's grown completely over it, the thing just doesn't drain. That is something that I think we should have the budget to be proactive on. Now, in a situation where, hey, someone's cut grass and there's so much of this mass of clippings and stuff that it floats over a drain and it clogs it, that's an example of, reactive. We can't anticipate like that sort of stuff. But going by a pond and realizing, hey, that is not looking like what it should, I would think that that's kind of built into the run rate of employees within your staff to be able to say, hey, you've got this quadrant of the city, make sure that you're checking these 5 ponds every quarter, and you've got a backlog to say, hey, this one is in very big disrepair, and we've got to get on that one. Now, if you don't have the budget to do anything about it, that's another problem to do.
Right. In my experience in the county, how we maintain those ponds, there was an MSBU set up, right, where the subdivision and the resident pay a fee. That fees come in, and that fee that we use to maintain those retention ponds.
Richard, can you have the Reptilis with you right there?
Yes, sir.
Because, to Commissioner Becker's point and everybody's point is we're way underfunded, no doubt about it. But we were as worried about the rate shock as we were we need to be reactive until we can get the rate right, but we didn't want to go to the top rate, which is, we went from, let's say, $25 for medium-sized home. This year we'll go to 60.
Right.
And then what is the top rate in the 5th year?
Let's see, the top rate for next year is going to be residential tier 3 at $36 plus another 36, so that's $72.
And then what's the following year?
And the following year is $6 more than that.
And this is non-ad valorem on the
That's
tax
correct.
bill?
Yes. And then so the last year is what? $72. So we're going from 25 to 72 over a 5-year period. So
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, there's sensitivity to our taxpayers and our residents, but there's also the reality of the situation that it costs money to do these things properly and proactively. And if we're not doing that, like I can justify all day long by going to a resident and saying, hey, it's been $20 on your non-ad valorem and it went to $125. I know that's an inconvenience financially. However, if you have the proof that it costs that and you're doing it responsibly and proactively, and you can prove that you're doing the job right, I mean, pull the plug. And because it hurts that we're up here and we're saying that we have to be reactive on everything. It's no fault to you. It's just, we got to set the right budget on these things.
and I'm trying
And
to think, what
Commissioner,
was-
as Dio said, there are MSBU's that the county sets up on new construction. That discussion has been had, and we will look to do that. I wanted to tackle the streetlights first and then move to the next. So we are looking to expand and go a different direction in that.
Any other questions for Richard?
Do we have a master plan of what how many stormwaters the city is responsible for?
We know how many stormwater ponds, yes, ma'am, that we maintain right now. Also in the budget this year is a stormwater master plan. We have a request for qualifications to select continuing consultants to do that plan. And that those consultants should be selected soon. And I hope by the end of this fiscal year, we'll get one under contract to do that master plan.
And that's been budgeted, the consultant?
The master plan's been budgeted, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's in the current year,
That's
in the
ongoing?
FY '23, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And my question was, in the budget, we have funds to take care of, well, I'm assuming that the neighborhood was off of Sheila Road.
Sheila Oaks.
Was that the one that we had the flooding problem?
Yeah.
We went in and
Lake
put in?
Hammer.
Yeah, Lake Hammer, so,
Commissioner, that was actually part of the capital plan that Ralph Tillis did, and that will be coming back to you and it was put into a bond, so we'll have to go out and get funding for the bond, but that was part of the master plan in the Ralph Tillis study.
okay, and then what about for the subdivision off of Benya Road?
Clear Lake?
Where are we with that Clear Lake?
But
That's still being worked through with DEP, if I'm correct there.
And
Yeah,
St. John's.
we're working that through with St. Johns River Water Management Districts, and at the homeowners association's presidents are going to need to get involved with that so that the pumping and the irrigation systems can belong to the private subdivisions, taking water from their private lake. If the city gets involved in that as the permittee, it costs a great deal more money.
So are they actively pursuing that so that, we don't have that problem again?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything else for Richard? Okay.
Now we're in sanitation. So that's at the end. And I really do appreciate that you are watching me go through all of this here. Thank you. I should have put little tabs on this. Okay, stormwater.
You're going to retain your title of quickest presentation.
I'm working.
You always seem to be the quickest.
I haven't figured out this order. I thought alphabetically sanitation goes before everything.
I always feel bad because you're always kind of one of the last person to go and stuff is always really, really
Look for your
short.
sanitation. The sanitation.
Okay, so good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm going to talk about the Streets Fund and the Sanitation Fund. Starting with Streets Fund 401-3412.
41 down.
So the Streets Division is under my management, Josh Robinson, Public Services Operations Manager, and is directly supervised by Mike Ortiz, Program Supervisor, and Greg Oas, Maintenance Supervisor. I'd like to just say, too, that give us 2 years, and those two gentlemen in our team is going to make you proud, I think. They're both sharp individuals, and, yeah, they do a good job. The staff in this group are responsible for managing the roadway resurface program, pothole repairs, traffic signal repairs program, right-of-way maintenance, trees and vegetation trimming, trash, debris removal, and minor construction retrofits such as curb and gutter, sidewalk, pipe cleaning, and many other day-to-day emergencies. The personnel costs went up by 28%, about $200,000. That's largely for two positions. We're adding a foreman and a maintenance worker, and then in addition to the employment cost increases. The operating expenses went up 32%, and that's about $1,067,000. Most of that is in adding some streetlights. There's about $100,000 extra for that. Tree removal and signal maintenance, $230,000 additional there, or I think it was $216 just for the trees. We started out with $100,000 last year, so we bumped that up quite a bit. FDOT equipment maintenance. We have a contract with FDOT to maintain about 13 of their signals here, and we were spending a lot more than they're paying us. We'll get reimbursement for it, but we trying to make that budget a little more realistic. Sidewalks and curb repairs, 665,000. We started out with 100,000 last year, so we really bumped that up. I could spend as much as you could give me on sidewalks, but that's a huge increase there, so looking forward to getting that money. And then the street sign replacement, additional 60,000, and increase in roll-off and disposal cost of about 34,000. So with that, of that million increase, we did realize about 40,000 reduction in professional services. That was for an arborist that we just, that cost is like $100 a tree, so we didn't need that much. The mowing decreased by 90,000. We're not actually reducing any mowing. In fact, we're going to have more contracted out to mow, but it's just correcting that budget line. And then road and materials, we've, I think, had a little aggressive idea of what we could use in that respect, and then we've got that a little more realistic. The capital outlay increased by 7%. Over the previous year, and amounting to about 149,000, and that will include a replacement of a F-550 truck and a equipment trailer and a utility trailer that will stock with stormwater supplies and pipe and things for the pumping setup. And with that, any questions on the streets division?
I had a couple here. So we take care of a few of the FDOT signals and all that. Are we marketing on some of their boxes or utility boxes for those lights? Because I know like around our city, we have marketing from Molnex Ford or Camp Wewalt, whatever it may be, on those boxes. Are we doing that on FDOTs as well?
That's a Pam question, but I don't think we would be. I think that's just our own signals.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And then the other one, do we have a list? I'm sure you don't have it right now, but a list that we could get of the sidewalks that are planned?
We do. We've broken the city out into 10 zones. And basically, yeah, we can give you a map of the zones and show you where we're at so far. I basically gave you a 20% budget this year. Yeah, we got a lot of sidewalks fixed based on what we did this year, and we tried to track the total footage versus what we had to repair and do some guesstimates. And so obviously year over year, we improve that guesstimate and get it more dialed in, but yeah, we've got plenty that we can spend on that. But yeah, we can share that.
Yeah, please.
That
That
plan
would be
with
very
you.
valuable.
As I recall, Josh, wasn't just Votal, that was 60,000, is that
60 or was it 80? Yeah, 60,000.
60,000 just for Votal? From Park to, yeah.
Part, yeah, part.
So,
Yeah, Old Dixie was 140,000, just the north side of Old Dixie Highway. Yeah, there's a lot of cracked, and maybe Zone 9 is where we're focused now. That's 441 Cimarron, Park, Vic, and Lester. So those are heavy roads. There's a lot of power lines. We get a lot of help, I think, from Duke on some of those sidewalks there. And so maybe it gets better as we go forward. But yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Are we still taking trees down at Piedmont?
We are. The mayor, I believe, and Radley met with the HOA today, in fact, to talk more about that plan as far as the removals. Yes, I've got a list that as soon as I get new money next year of about 70 trees we'll take out, and then they were discussing the plan to what and how we'll replace them.
So let me just give you kind of a little background in where we are. So anyway, should never have planted laurel oaks in between the road and the sidewalk. So it was, 20 years ago, we So now these trees are starting to die, but what was happening is, based on our arbor ordinance, they had to go out and get an arborist to say that they could take the tree out. Well, it wasn't really fair to them, so we just said, listen, let's just hire an arborist, go do the whole neighborhood, and we'll tell them which trees to take out. So it saved all of the homeowners the money that they would have to pay an arborist to come out and do it individually. So then we got the plan on what trees need to be taken out. What we talked about today is maybe there's another tree that we're going to try to give them 4 tree options to put in that are not trees that will pop sidewalks. So for instance, Little Jim Magnolia, there's some hollies that are smaller, bottle brush, and maybe they'll pick one. So if they want to go back and try to redo their whole neighborhood with one tree, we can see if we can negotiate a deal. I know Donnie maybe can negotiate a deal with a wholesale nursery to get maybe 500 of these trees, and so they could buy out of that inventory, so that if they want to replace them. A lot of them, they have no desire. They don't want to replace anything. They hate the sticks, the leaves and all that. So that's kind of where we're at.
So, yeah, because did we satisfy the homeowners who did ask to have the trees removed, even though they were not determined by the arborist to be old or,
We did, well, we removed the tree from Mr. Ali's house.
Yes.
And it's a work in progress. Yeah, there's others that have complained about the trees that we have addressed. Whether we've got to them all, I don't know, but we're out of money. I mean, we've been out of tree money since, we've held on to a few bucks just for emergency stuff, but, yeah, we're going to take care of Piedmont Lakes. That's where the focus for the tree money will be first next fiscal year.
do we still have a tree fund that we add funds to?
Yes,
We do.
yes.
And
So,
when do we go to that tree fund? When do we use that tree fund?
whenever they need it, if you.
Well,
say
all
that
those
they need it.
trees at Northwest, the trees at Kitland Nelson Park, the tree, just a few trees in the median on 441, the trees on Fifth, the trees on Central.
So we use that tree
Main.
fund to bring in new trees?
Correct.
It's okay, so it's for new trees?
Yep.
Do you know what that fund is right now? The
We
amount?
got a lot.
Yeah, it's about 700.
Couple hundred thousand.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a Parks and Rec, but we got a couple $100,000 in it.
Okay.
And the tree fund is from when the developer goes in and mows down trees over a certain caliber, then they have to put money into that fund. That's how that gets funded.
So, and then I just had so any resident that has an existing tree, do they still have to come into the city to say they want to remove the tree and pay to have it? I mean, they will do it.
If it's on their, yeah, if it's
So
on
are
their
they still
property.
required to do that? To come into the
The
city to
statute,
notify?
the state changed the statute
That's what I
last
was
year, and that
asking.
there's not a requirement anymore. It used to be required, but we can't force them anymore based on state statute.
Oh, that's interesting.
The sidewalk that's on Puncan, I'm not sure if that's city or if that's county.
It's ours.
That's ours, okay. There are sections of that sidewalk where the soil underneath is gone.
Yeah.
And eventually, something's gonna happen. We look at what we need to do about addressing it.
I need to get up there and backfill it and pack it in, and it's like, yeah. The problem with,
Come on up, Mike.
Is that the sidewalk going toward the school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked on getting a couple quotes there from some contractors. It's gonna be around 200,000 to do that whole grading, adding dirt, putting erosion control mats because of that slope that we have there. Yeah, the undermining there is pretty severe and we're on top of it. Hopefully we could try to come up with a plan of action sometime next year to get that resolved.
Okay. So is that in the budget?
At the moment, not yet, but we have to see how much it will cost for a couple other quotes.
Well, I guess,
It is, it's just, the sidewalk just got encumbered by 200K. Now it's
Yeah.
down to 417.
Yeah, because that Piedmont Lakes, as we remove trees there, we're also gonna be replacing the sidewalks and the aprons that were affected by those overgrown trees. And every tree there, like the mayor said, has destroyed every sidewalk that you see there. So we just don't wanna remove the tree and just leave a tripping hazard with the sidewalk or the apron. You can see some aprons that are like 4 inches lifted all over the neighborhood. So our plan of action really to focus on that neighborhood to take care of all the issues there.
all right, but I guess my concern is once we get the quote back from the consultant as to what it's going to take to repair that, I don't want to wait till the next budget year in order to repair that. It's probably too late by then at the rate that erosion is taking place. So do we need to add additional funds to this budget for this year in order to make sure that's covered?
We needed that, I asked for 1.2 million, and that's 1/5 of what we need for all the sidewalks in the city. So we're just like stormwater. I mean, it's just like that. There's a large backlog of maintenance work. And, I know you all get frustrated with us. I know Dr. O does, that you call us about things that you see out there. It's not that we don't see them already. It's not that we don't want to fix them. It's just that we spend so little of our time on proactive activity. Okay, so we've laid out all the zones that we want to go through systematically and fix, the stormwater drains, the sidewalks, the trees, the brush that's overgrowing the street. And if Greg makes it through a week and can put one day of doing that and not chasing the odd sidewalk here, tree limb there, this type of thing, he's doing good. And, we bumped it up. You see 28% increase in the operating expense. That's almost all of that is increasing money for contractors for things like sidewalks, signal maintenance, sign maintenance, tree maintenance, all those things. And I hope we keep doing that every year. We added 2 heads, that's going to help. We got a plan to kind of organize and get a little more streamlined. We want to launch we got an asphalt truck, hot patch asphalt truck. We want to launch it daily. See, if fixing a sidewalk is not very efficient, if you do one here and one on the other side of town, and if you call and tell me about this one over here, it doesn't make sense either to go over there and fix it because there's 10 others right alongside of it. And when the resident sees me fix that one and not these 10, they're livid. And so we try to approach it more holistically. And, it's a plan that's coming into fruition, but it's not going to happen overnight. I think we got a good solid plan for the next 5 years. We got some great people on board, and we're getting we're getting funding to increase the work and the resources we can put to this stuff. And we've got, with Greg, he came from Winter Park, some experience to help us get more efficient with the resources we do have. Every little bit helps, and we're going to get there.
Well, we're looking at the expense side of the coin, but and obviously the half-cent sales tax funds this fund.
Gas tax.
Gas tax.
The gas, sorry.
And we have, right now, we just have a projection in there. We don't have the state projections at this time. They weren't available.
Right.
So
So
we are
the
gonna-
point being is that we could have some favorability on the revenue side
I hope so.
with the idea that if we do, it could go into
It would-
increasing the allocation
Yes.
for this piece.
I would caution you that with the EV cars, we're getting 0. And so as the EV percentage of cars goes up,
Yeah.
our
that's
gas
less.
tax is going to go down.
down.
So I think it's kind of like the communication tax. It's flatlined. I don't see either one of those going up ever again. But, unless something,
I've read of communities that have, and I'm sure this has been done for years, they have transportation use taxes or find some way to, get some money from, the users, the Amazons of the world, and I think we need that. We put a lot of stress on our streets and our street infrastructure. And yeah, like you said, gas tax is not going to continue to cover it.
The group that helped fund the section of sidewalk that we put in out there on Pond Can, and there's a sign,
Yes.
is it possible to go back to them?
Well, that's from the sign money. That's the sign money.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what we've collected. I know that somebody had asked about the sign money. Okay,
You're talking about the ones that Dr.
The
O
bo-
was?
yeah.
Oh, I think she was quoted a number like it was 5,000. This was you that was.
No, it's-
Total was in the 20s.
Yeah, 5,000 one year and then 20 the next or something.
Where's the gas? What line would the gas?
One, it's in Fund 101. You see, go down after general fund.
okay, you want to go ahead and,
You see it?
are you okay, we'll go on to sanitation, or you want to?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. And I did a slight projection in there, but we don't have the state projections right now.
But yeah, I mean, and I see what the mayor's point is, but the fact is, I mean, if we budgeted for 1.7 last year, we're projecting 300K favorability there. One could hypothesize that you can still see some still upward trend before you start seeing the downward trend, but yeah, okay.
Okay?
Okay, sanitation, that's Fund 402.
Oh, sorry, I did have one question.
Okay.
On our previous budgets, we've kind of allocated 1.8 million for resurfacing and roadway improvements. And here it says 2 million. Is it 2 or is it 1.8?
It's two, right?
2?
Right.
Okay,
2 million for 24.
got it.
Right, it is 2 million, but I just want to make a point here. The cost for resurfacing went up, right? The contractor that we have used told me that he no longer is honoring that contract anymore. So we have to look for another outsourcement of a contract. Right now, the cost of asphalt product went up by 40%. So last year, we have done 10.1 miles of roadway in basically structural treatment and also some treatment, right? Structural treatment, which is mill and overlay, and also some treatment, which is Cape Seal. For this $2 million, I can assure you this, you are not going to get 10 miles of road done. So what I have there, 2 priority of roads. One is Hermit Smith, that was off the list that I'm going to have to do this year, and that road cost will be about $480,000. Jason Dwelly, there's a segment of that road also is bad. So I have to put that because in those roads, they need specialized work. The base is falling apart. It looks good when you drive and you see all those iterations, but the base is not strong enough. So there's a special roadway system like what we do on Yada Road, which is called cool-in-place recycling. So both of those segments, I did the cost for those two segments. It will be close to $1 million. So I will only have $1 million left over, and that is purely will be used for selective road and treatment. So I just want to make that clear because of the cost of doing business, the cost of rocks, the cost of asphalt, the cost of emulsion, and everything went up. Plus, I asked the fellow the cost of labor costs. So $2 million, what he could have given me this year to do, will not able to do so as we move forward.
Hey, I just like to see progress, right? I mean, the fact, because we spent a few years not doing anything.
Right.
And so having a budget, getting stuff done, people seeing it. I actually kind of liked it on social media. People were complaining about the inconvenience when we were doing Vic. But you know what? we were making progress, and I can handle that sort of complaint all day long. But as long as we're doing progress and it's anchored and you've prioritized it and you can justify it all day long.
Right, but there are other roads out there that is getting worse too. So I just wanted to make sure there's no fun. And Martin Road is a segment of those that's getting bad. Haas Road is getting bad as well. So there's not funding to fix all of those, right? So I just wanted to make sure that I brought it up here. If there's funding anywhere else, if you give it to us in street, we sure are going to make good use of it.
All set with streets? Okay, sanitation, Fund 402, 3210. This fund is an enterprise fund covered by user fees. It's managed by myself again with Quani Robertson, foreman, and Elsa Martinez, solid waste specialist, supervising it. Also would like to say those two individuals, if I ever get hit by a bus, it'll just keep running because they've got it and they do a good job. So, along with our whole team. There are 18 sanitation equipment operators and one container tech. We employ 25 vehicles to provide the twice-a-week garbage, once-a-week bulky and yard waste, appliances, as well as every other week recycling to about, we project by the end of next year, 20,000 some residents. Oh, sorry. Okay. So we also provide commercial garbage service to approximately 800 businesses. I measure our missed pickup calls, and we achieve our goal of less than one missed pickup per 1,000 homes to give us kind of a overview of how we're doing in terms of quality. The monthly rate for the residential service will increase this year to $21.04. That's a little below the average of Orange County, Winter Garden, Ocoee, Orlando, and Winter Park. And the commercial rate will increase to $5.20 per container yard per month. City of Orlando also provides a similar service, and they charge $7.20 per yard. The personnel costs increased by 5%. That's largely employee cost increases. Operating expense increased by $96,000. That's only 2%. Most of that was increase in the number of carts that we order to keep in inventory. Because of the number we have to order at one time, and we have multiple sizes, it's kind of a big chunk that made that go up a little disproportionately. And then capital outlay, it doubled over last year, but we to keep our average age of fleet where we want it and keep up with our CIP, we're making a scheduled replacement of one garbage unit, a 2014 side load unit, and then we're adding one for growth. These are the two trucks we actually put money towards last year, and they're to deliver it this year, or this year, and they're to deliver it next year. So the budget includes the remainder of that, which is $884,000. And then we're also asking for a rear loader for 2025 for an additional yard trash route at that point. Our current age of fleet is about 6.2. With these trucks, that'll drop it a little closer to 5, which is about where we want to be. Depending on the type of truck, we try to keep them 8 years for frontline, 10 years for a backup, and then get them out. And then lastly, the transfer that we normally do of 680, we're going to hold that. Like they said, Blanche is doing analysis of making sure that matches the value we get from that transfer. And with that, any questions on sanitation?
Any questions?
I'm pretty sure we budgeted this last year too. It's not a huge amount. 18,000 was last year, right? If I'm reading this right, we're doing 20,000 this year for a recycling program. Did we do anything with it last year?
No. I've got 20,000, the 18,000 this year that I want to, those boxes you mentioned, I think that's the quickest way I can spend that is to utilize some of those to get the message out. And I put the money in there. To be totally honest, I'm a little swamped with taking on the streets division, but I plan to. But with Elsa's help, she's stepping up and really helping me a lot to get a little more comprehensive information plan out. I mean, that's not a lot of money to do much with, but that either a couple of newsletters, maybe a bi-yearly newsletter, or using some of those. And then we also will have some free or inexpensive resources. The county is working on some, they've built a shared web space that helps promote recycling and for all the communities in the area so that we're kind of consistent with our message there as
Gotcha.
well. We'll participate with that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I know we'd spoken about this in the past too. Just if whatever program we do run with, I'd love to be a part of it, just to kind of
Okay.
understand and promote it as well. Thank you.
The other question that I had for you was the bear resistant carts. Initially, that was through a grant.
Right.
We've exhausted that grant. Are we
Right.
still providing? Because I saw you put 31,000 for bear carts. Is there still a need for that in this community?
We get constant requests for them,
do.
and that's not very many of those carts because they're expensive. So they basically we're
31,000
keeping them for replacements of the ones that we've already provided. The initial carts we went with, we found we're having a lot of trouble with them, and they're coming back. And we went to a different cart, the Kodiak cart. You can look that up online and read about it. It's a lot more durable. It's the one the county actually had implemented when they put their program in place. And so far, we're seeing that they're holding up and operating like they were designed. And so,
Right, because the initial ones, the lock wouldn't open.
right,
And so I know I had one because we had bears.
yeah,
But my husband had to take the lock off because when the truck would come, it wouldn't open up.
well, the drivers hate them.
Yeah.
But the newer ones, I think, do. But I haven't heard a complaint from the resident or the driver on the second model.
Mine still works fine.
Pardon? Oh, yours
Mine
still?
still works fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, mine didn't. But the other question is just kind of a general one. As these new developments come online, how are we meeting those services? I mean, you're adding now all these new developments, but are you asking for any personnel and
Well,
trucks?
yeah, I did. I wanted 3, but at least one operator. But the truck is not going to get here for them and that becomes more and more murky as every time I call and ask the ETA on it, it gets a little further out. But last I heard, we're looking at April maybe of next year. So, yeah, so I needed the truck and the driver before I can add the route. We would have added that driver except for trying to balance the budget, and we're gonna have to wait still another half a year or more before we get the truck for them to run the route. So we do, and the same way with the rear loader that I'm asking for this year, that's for 2025. That's for growth that we're expecting for the yard trash in 2025, and at which time I'll ask for a driver for that truck. So we do have a plan. Sometimes it gets a little wonky because of the checkbook and the timing. Like they said, for almost anything that's made of steel or electronics or a combination is just crazy getting them. And we've tried to maintain a uniform fleet. I know Charlie values that, but I'm almost to the point to, take a look at that next guy that walks in my office wanting to got a truck in inventory to maybe buy that. But it's like trying to herd cats,
And just so you know, we do have a 10% increase
10% increase in
sanitation fees
the sanitation.
reflected. So we have to go up on that. It's reflected in there, 10%.
So with this new budget year, I just want to make sure that as a new, because I don't even know, James is not here, so he wouldn't be able to tell me, like how many new developments are coming online, and will you be able to meet those services?
I watch the growth year over year. I check the new developments and the house counts associated with those. I've been watching like the one on Laura Lee Lane down off McCormick. I was kind of looking for it last year, and they've just now started to build. And that's going to be 300 homes, so that's a pretty good. The average truck can get about 1,170 stops a day. So I use that number to do the math, and we're at the point where we need 8.1 routes. By the end of next year, I expect we'll need 8.7 routes. So try to stay a little bit ahead of it, but not too far ahead because it gets so expensive.
we still use the labor force, is it?
We use
Separate,
them
like-
some for the yard waste, for the manual labors on the back of the trucks, yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I guess that wraps up public services.
Well, I just had some high-level, just wrap-up questions.
Okay, for DO,
Yeah.
sure.
So again, just high level, there's a lot of nuanced projects that have state requirements, deadline periods, things like that. Do we have everything budgeted to make sure that we're adhering to any firm deadlines from any state projects that we're doing?
Right, I think our budget, for what I know, for compliance sake, we have sufficient funding to cover any compliance issue. The only one that I know of right now is the mandate that I explained to you concerning the testing.
Okay. And then we talked about, I see Bradley in the room too, facilities again. I think we touched on it when we were talking about facilities before, but restrooms and all the stuff that have been problematic in the public services building, that's on file to get repaired for this coming budget year.
Right, I've been working with Bradley. He got the list and he's working diligently to help us out there.
And then last bit, I'm just trying to anchor myself back to the survey, the employee survey. I want to be cognizant of the fact of what people were talking about. And so obviously, compensation was a big point of concern. But again, I think it goes back to the salary study. When we talk about the salary study, it's not just, hey, what should be the beginning pay, the midpoint, and the top out pay. But each one of these departments is very nuanced in the sense of like standby pay or hazardous pay or different things that come in. Exactly, covering all the kind of nuanced benefit and compensation packages for the different departments. I'm assuming that's part of the scope of the salary study work.
The request will be for salary and benefits study to see where we stand with the labor market in Central Florida.
Because another one that has a big, not just a monetary implication, but just pure logistics. And we talked about it, it was on several of the verbatims of the 4x10 work week. And so I just want to make sure that that's contemplated during that study as well.
Right, one of the most important things that I gathered from the survey, right, I passed it to staff as well, they were mentioning regarding the salary because they were concerned about the cost of living increase that was eliminated in the past. And to my reading of some of those survey, they wanted to add back the cost of living increase. So that is one point I just wanted to make here.
And what I've struggled in the past too is when people hear, like we've talked about it in previous budget cycles, when we talk about 3%, we're talking about a 3% pool of money based off of your expenditure for your various funds. That doesn't mean there's a max cap of 3% employee merit increase on any individual employee basis. The whole idea of a 3% merit pool, and I'm not going to talk COLA, I'm just talking merit. A 3% merit pool would be, okay, then you as a director or supervisor then have to calibrate your team to say, okay, I've got overachievers and I've got underperformers. Your overachievers are going to get higher end on that percentage scale. So maybe the historical 6% that some people might be used to. Some people are going to get lower. It's a motivation tactic, and that's normal course for any organization in terms of, incentivizing strong performers within the organization. So, I don't know where it's going to land in terms of 3%, 5%, 6%, but I just want to be very clear to people that when we say 3%, that doesn't mean it's maxed for every single person. The max that you can get is 3%. So I just always want to use an opportunity to squash that.
Right, the only thing I want to say, if you look at the presentation yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of our staff are listening, you see compensation is given $1,000 to communication people, to police, to everything else. Those are questions that public service staff is asking as well, right? Where we are in that picture, because a lot of our work to involve working in confined spaces, trenching, situation that is kind of hazardous for the conditions. So, it is a cultural change that, that the consistency have to go across the board. So I just wanted to make sure I cannot address those questions if they come up to me, the answers, but people are listening to this workshop and they're listening to what is being done and they're asking where the consistency is. So I just want to share that point here.
Yeah, and knowing that they are watching, again, the criticisms that we received as council, I want to be cognizant of that fact too, is to your point, a lot of times we get so bogged down in talking about public safety and not having equal amount of spirited conversation around public services. And I want to make sure that we do, because I think that's what is so critical about this salary study, is to take in all of the feedback that we've heard. We're not going to solve this by a snap of the fingers, but it sounds like we've got a commitment that there's an allocation of money to be able to action a salary study outcome, because the worst thing that we can do is have a salary study, get recommendations, and then we say, oops, we don't have any money to enact it.
Yes.
And so I just want to make sure that your folks are aware that we appreciate what they're doing. We want to make sure that we're satisfying to as much as we can. But on the same token is, hopefully you're presenting a budget, you're comfortable with this budget, that you are making your people feel that they can come to the job, have the proper equipment, have the proper backup and teamwork to be able to do the job successfully.
Yeah, well, I think the public service staff are exceptional, right? Anything that we ask that those staff in the field to do, they perform. And they perform diligently to the best of their ability. We are very proud of the staff that we have. And all these management staff here and supervisor, right, they need to be credited for the humongous job that they're doing. As Josh has said here, we have sometimes struggled with funding, reactive. Many cases, we have come in to do specialized project work, and then emergency comes up. And everything that hits the road is public service. Everybody turns to us to go ahead and so we change priority every day. It's kind of very stressful situation, but you're right. Our budget here is not, I would say perfect in terms, but it gives us at least an optimum that we balance the equipment with the service that we do, right? And to maintain, the staff can maintain the current service that they're performing.
And when you say cost of living, they want that put back. So in my viewpoint, cost of living is different than merit pay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, we budgeted 5%, Blanche, for.
Yes, because that's the average.
Right.
But they can go
So
up to
5%
6.
across all departments is what we budgeted.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is, again, yeah, I mean, you can argue back what the right percentage is. I'm just saying.
No, I'm saying that,
yeah.
but that's in the
5%,
budget.
yeah. I knew that was built in.
Okay,
as
okay.
As that point. What I'm saying is that, and again, don't get married to this number. I'm just using the 3% as an example because it's been, a point of contention in the past.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. That case in point, you could have a 5% pool for each department, and I'm just using a wild example here, though. You could have some people that you want to give 10% raise to, or one person that you want to give 1% raise to. It's just, but it's the same pool of funds. It's up to the manager or the supervisor then to say, okay, who do I want to incentivize because they've done a hell of a job? Who do I not, because it's a morale killer, quite honestly, if you give everybody kind of peanut butter type of merit increases, because what does that do to motivate you to be the best that you want to be? I'm not doubting the performance of our individual employees. I'm not trying to make that assertion, but it's, again, it's just a tactic that you use in the compensation model. But.
Our commissioners and mayor, I want to thank you for
I
our
want to
meeting
thank you.
and to look forward. I think that you always look out for public service. So if there is any funding you can find anywhere else, please put it in public service budget. Thank you so
And
much.
what was the cost of living that was included before? What was that percentage?
We've never
I
had
think
cost of
The city's never used a cost of living. It's always used a merit increase. That's how we've based everything.
And what we did last year.
Right,
we-
that
we-
was
We knew that was
exception.
as inflation was picking up. What we did is we doubled the longevity bonus. It's just kind of a stopgap. Now, what we've done is we've taken that we
This year.
rolled back the longevity bonus, expecting or anticipating some salary adjustments.
Adjustments, correct.
So that makes sense?
Right, but the salary adjustment is not going to occur this upcoming year.
Oh, yeah.
No, the plan is to get the study back
Yeah.
and as soon as we can get it back
Yeah.
and then come back to y'all and Blanche has put a little bit of money there, hoping that,
That's in 24.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
And so is it going to be retroactive back to October 1st?
it probably won't be retroactive, but it should be from when the study's done. That, and again,
It could
that's the board's decision, but
Okay.
it should go forward, you know? So,
All right, thank you.
Mayor, I just want to intercede just a minute, just so y'all are aware. Mr. Andrew Hand's here to represent Cliff. Cliff is out this week, out of town, so I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge he's here.
Oh, okay.
So public comment, anybody like to speak?
Okay, so we're done with this book?
Yes.
I know. Oh, I know, but for now, I've got this desk all full. People are away from me.
Dr. O, the first thing is, y'all mentioned the trees that y'all are taking down, and y'all said that they were beyond the sidewalk, so they're in the easement area?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure that they have trees meeting the regulation in the yard, because there's a minimum number required inside the yard. So I hope that they meet that. The other thing is supervision. I think that's a big thing, is if we have contractors out there taking care of areas of French drains, stormwater drains, ponds, that they need to be regulated. They need to be supervised by city. And when we've turned in a dozen times the same drains and they're not cleared, then we've got a problem. Then it looks like a supervision issue. Because I have the same pictures of the same drains, and I went out and photographed them again today. They're still full. I turned in some that had 3-foot-high bidens in them. Then when they mowed, they weed whacked the bidens down, but they still had the plants there and the sod. And they weed whacked down a 4-foot or 5-foot Christmas tree, I called it, but it was a weed. They left all the sod there in the French drain. And then it grew back up. Then they mowed it the next time when they mowed the area, cut it back down again. I have the picture of that time. And then this week, after I complained again, they sprayed the Lester Road drain. And now we have dead grass there, but it's still completely clogged. That doesn't stop the drainage issue. The stormwater is still not getting down the drain. So whoever the contractor is that went out, or the employee that went out there, did not clear the drain. It's not helping us with the system. It's part of the system. And if you go down to in front of Sam's, all of those drains down there are clogged, and that's one I've turned in the same clog over and over again for 2 years, and it has never been cleared. It's on the corner there. They're mowing over in the median there, 2 signs that are laying down, 2 street signs. The divided intersection sign and another sign are laying there, and I have a photograph. I sent one a little bit ago to someone, and the street signs are being mowed over, and you can just see a little bit of each sign now. But the post is there. Now, that's going to wreck the equipment, but instead of picking it up and getting it out of the way, they're mowing right over it. We're getting mowing over debris instead of picking up the paper and trash. When we clean out a drain, we throw it up on a pile and don't put it in the truck and take it away. But it looks like a supervision issue, but no follow-through. And see-click-fix is not working. You turn in a see-click-fix and you don't get a response for 10 days or 2 weeks, and then the job doesn't get done. So I'm really concerned about the whole issue. When a job gets done, it gets done well, but I'm not seeing them getting done. So those are my concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. O.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Rod Olson, 3156 Rolling Hills Lane. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for what you do, and to all the city employees for what they do. I'm around the community a lot through a number of different things that I do, and it's rare that I don't see someone look up, say hello, or is there something I can help you with? It's awesome. See Click Fix, I ditto on that. That's been a problem a couple times. It's worked, but I have an answer to that. It's called the Glenn D.O. Mayor, because if you text or email them, it gets done. Get done pretty quickly. I'm not advertising that for everyone, but it certainly worked for me. In particular with Dio and Glenn, we had branches come down over Brush Lane, the bike trail, and within a couple hours, they had people out there taking care of that. With regard to fleet maintenance, I'm out there on a regular basis, but fortunately we have new vehicles, so I'm not out there as frequently anymore. I miss the guys, but they need, if we can put, pardon my French, but it's what they're called, big ass fans like they have in airports, they have in many athletic complexes to help move air better. It is stifling out there. These guys are working under stifling conditions. I know that's a mechanic's life to a degree, but I think we can move more air for them. Noting on the budgets, nearly everything was 7% or up for both staffing, for maintenance, for fleet maintenance, and sanitation was at 5%. And I think we need to look at that as to what that may be. Maybe it's some additional staff. I don't have all the details, so I don't know. On backflow preventers, I call it the 22221. I got 2 letters. I got 2 calls. Twice at city council meetings, I was approached about my backflow preventers. Twice I presented the document, and yet I bump into a gentleman in my front yard digging up saying, oh, yours is already replaced. This goes back to what I projected before. We should take over for the rest of it. The time you're sending letters, you're making calls, you're following up. If the city took care of it, development by development, it wouldn't be an issue anymore. The process for me, and this is the first time I've attended, I don't have all the details, is kind of disappointing. I was in management for over 40 years. Wage survey, benefit survey was done every year prior to budget, so we knew what was going on. If that's not the practice for cities or government, that's why they're having some of the problems you're having some of the problems. With regard to the aspect of equipment inventory, we saw it with some of the vehicles. In my industry, and it was healthcare, and in food service as well, we knew when we bought the equipment, we knew the projected life on it was on a schedule, a spreadsheet, and we knew. So it wasn't a surprise to anything. Wait a minute, we need to look at this. It should be part of it. If it's not, it needs to be there. The software is a debacle. You guys working off, everyone working off, who knows what. The numbers aren't right. One sheet says this, one sheet says that. I don't know how you operate it, and it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, Sylvester Hall. This last couple of days has been an eye-opener for me, and it's really enjoyable to sit in here and watch how the city works. Because when everybody look at things or what's going on in the country, they look at it at a national level. But we know how important everything is, and everything starts on a local level. So you guys are our local level, and you guys dictate what goes on in the city of Apopka. One of the things that I'm seeing here, just overseeing everything, following the budget. I'm sitting back there, I'm looking at the figures, trying to follow everything. And I own 2 small businesses, and at the end of the year, I have to have a closeout to tell me exactly where I'm at, and then it tells me exactly where I'm starting this year. It seems like we don't have the real numbers to follow that. And if you don't have the real numbers going in and coming out, as we used to say in the military, garbage in, garbage out. Another thing I want to say with the department heads, I'm watching the department heads, and it's like, I don't know whether they're afraid to, but nobody wants to come up and put exactly what is the state of their department. And I watch you guys ask a question about staffing, and they were reluctant to say, I need help. Well, if you want to get somewhere, you got to first know where you're at, and then that way you know where you're going or how you want to get there. And I think we need to bridge that gap because I sit in one city council meeting and I heard a consultant come in, and that consultant said the mayor job was underpaid, but everybody else is fine. You guys paid for that. And I look at the department heads, and it's not fine. They're grossly undermanned, and they're scared to ask for help. They are. I look at it. I don't know. Well, that's my assumption. But when the department head comes to the city council, they need to be able to come and say, "This is where we at." Now, how do we get here? That's where the real work starts. But if you don't know exactly what is the state of your city, you're in trouble. As we go out on a ship, and if we don't know the state of that ship when we get out there, we're in trouble because we can't call 911. So we have to know the material readiness of the ship. And so when I look at the department here, you guys are our city. We have to know the material readiness of this city at all times. And that's paramount for everybody sitting here to know that. And to know what these department heads need to get the job done, to keep the people safe, especially in a crisis. Now, I'm going to just throw one thing at you real quick. When I say you guys need an itemized list of what department head need now, what equipment is down, what they need in the future, that needs to be an itemized list. When a department head comes up here and he say, okay, I got 160 lift stations. Well, my head goes off is like 160 lift stations. Now, when we say the lifespan is about 20 years, Commissioner Becker, it's like a car. If you're changing the oil and you're doing all that, you may get a few more years. But if you're not doing the PM, the maintenance on those lift stations, they're going to fall down a lot faster. And then you're not going to be able to, when you're talking about $2 million of cost. And just think 160 lift stations. How many man hours is that to go and check each one of them on a annual basis, a semi-annual basis? That's a lot of man hours. And so what I'm saying is the department head need to itemize that and let you guys know their condition. If not, the city is going to be in a real hurtful situation when you come to the budget, because we put it out for so many years of what actually needs to be done to keep the city safe, and now it's catching up with us. And that's at every level that needs to be done. Thank you. Oh, one other thing, the trucks, I own Personal Auto Direct. If you guys got a crisis in getting trucks, all you have to do is call me. That nightmare you're having getting the equipment is over with. Thank you.
All right. So do we need to probably close the budget hearing and then open it up?
Do I need to make, I know I'm going to do an overview
Right.
of the general fund. When we do the millage rate, we can do that at the special meeting. Or do you want me to, in regards to the
I'd
other
rather
funds?
do-
Because I think they have some concerns about the other funds. Maybe I can share some additional information at this time.
You want to
if
do
they
this?
like.
Okay, sure.
If you like.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do, a general?
No, not right now. We're going to wait for the special meeting to the general fund overview. But I just wanted to share some of the revenue highlights for some of the other funds. I know we mentioned them a little bit, but I want to share some more details. In regards, like I said, with the streets funds, we are waiting on the gas tax revenue from the state on that, but we do have $153,000 reflected in that revenue as an increase. We also did increase the transfers from the general fund to support that fund because that fund has been running in a deficit for several years. So we tried to balance it out. The objective for all of these funds were to stay within their revenues and try to limit the use of reserves as much as possible. So, and with that transfer, we met that commitment.
So what was the transfer in the street funds? I'm sorry.
We're at 4 million right now. We were around 2 million last year. So we added an additional 2 million. You'll see that later as I go through the general fund to support some of the paving. That's coming out of that capital reserve fund that I mentioned how we balanced the,
Okay.
okay? in regards to the impact fee funds, as you know, those are restricted funds. They basically have the funds to do what they need to do, and the revenue come in usually builds those reserves. So all of those funds were balanced with basically without a use of reserves at this time. Okay. In regards to the Stormwater Fund, Fund 120, again, we increased that based on the study. So, and we were able to balance that fund at this time without use of reserves. There may be other needs, but again, we're looking as those revenues begin to increase, we'll have more revenue available to do some more improvements with stormwater. In addition, we're looking at securing some debts for some of the main stormwater improvements. And we mentioned that, I think, the other day. So we talked to our financial advisor today, the mayor and I, and so we are looking into trying to secure some debt to fund some of those improvements. Okay. All the special assessment funds, they're basically status quo for this year. In regards to the water fund, Fund 401, this is another fund. It's like an operating fund. There's no doubt, we know that that fund is hurting right now. And we did reflect a 6% increase in the fees for water service fees, the meter and tap fees, water other fees, the reclaimed water and tap fees, and the sewer service fees. We got an increase of 13.5%. Okay, that is something we definitely need to look at. This is a fund where we're using $9 million in reserves to balance this fund. They used $7 million last year. During the budget discussions, I warned the department, you're running out of reserves. We got to do something different. So we tried to minimize the use of reserves in that manner. And as I mentioned before, we're looking at an estimated deficit of about $3 million. However, when you look at the current year projections for FY23, we probably can recover that because it's coming in it was projected to come in at an excess of about 3-some million, could be more. So that's why I felt comfortable with the balance that we have. Okay. In regards to the sanitation fund, again, that's a 10% increase there on those sanitation fees that we have reflected in that budget. The sanitation fund is another fund that was running at a deficit for a while. But again, the objective here, because of that, is try to keep all of these funds consistent so they, with their revenues, so they won't increase those deficits. So we have the sanitation fund balanced right now with the use of that projected increase in revenue of 10% for those fees. In regards to the impact fee fund, I know you didn't get any details on that, and Commissioner Becker, I apologize for any confusion, but the issue with the impact fee fund, as Mr. Commissioner Nestor clearly explained, what happened, as that base budget went in there, those things were rebudgeted and not zeroed out. So we had to come back and zero those items out because they already included in the FY23 budget. Those amounts will roll over. We did not want to duplicate the amounts. That's why you saw what you saw with zero amounts, because that would have been a duplication of the budget, because whatever is in the 23 budget will roll over to the 24 budget. Okay, and of course, we know how the CRA fund works. That's in a separate process from us, and as it goes through that process, we will update this budget accordingly.
Where, on the revenue side, where,
We're gonna do that on the.
Which one?
no, just real quick, the interest on our cash deposits, where would
In
that?
the general fund, we increased that about to 1.2, so it's in different lines where you say.
Yeah, where is it on here? Because in the general fund, well, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Look, go on the first page. And
Yeah,
it's like
something-
a few lines up from the bottom of the first page. You see that 1.260? From the bottom of the first page, go up on the revenue. You looking at revenue?
Give me a number. No,
1,260,000.
give me the account ID.
Account ID, 001 361.
Okay.
Looks like it's 1,000. I'm blind as you are.
It's not on my first page.
Oh, it's on your second page. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I got it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the Fed just raised rates again today or yesterday, so.
Yeah, about 5 point, what was it?
5.25, I thought.
Yeah.
They're
It did.
planning on raising it again.
So I was hoping that that could bring some clarity in the basis and how we went through this budget process. So again, yeah, we do look at our financial position as to where we are. Some of the numbers that I have, I focus primarily, I will say, on the general fund because that's where we're trying to set a millage rate. However, we did look at the other funds and their reserve balances.
But if I reverse engineer, since we don't have a viewpoint of the 401 balance, can I reverse engineer what that balance is based off of what you're projecting in terms of interest dividend on their investments within that fund?
Again, it's coming in, they're using 9 million, so they're running in a deficit of about 3 million. They're using 9 million in reserves to balance the 401 fund. And so they only had about 8.9 left after taking the FY22 actual reserves when I broke that out. Remember, I had to break that out between 401 and 403. That left 401 at the end of 22 going into 23, what they planned to do in 23, it would have been like 9 million. So they're using that 9 million in 24, okay? Plus they had some amendments in 23. So it's causing them to go into a deficit. That means an increase in their budget, in their use of their reserves in 23. I'll show it to you.
But if that, yeah, I'm a total visual
I
person, so
have
I
to
need
show
to
it
see
to
the
you.
walk. But if everything is funded, so they would have a $3 million deficit in their reserve?
With the use of the 9 million that they're projecting to use for the FY24, it's a projected deficit at this time. However, I'm thinking that based on where we stand for FY23, we can close that out because we may come in on the positive to zero that out.
Okay, so I'm gonna regurgitate, sorry, I'm dead.
It's okay. No.
So visual, it's not even funny. So with their current budget, they're at a deficit, and they would have
Yes.
to use $9 million out of the 401 reserve to
Yes.
balance their budget.
Yes.
That doesn't indicate what the resulting reserve balance would be. We don't know that number.
That's what I'm saying. That resulting reserve balance creates a negative 3 million.
Correct.
And I'm saying, I think
So that's if nothing else changes from this point in time, your magic ball or your crystal ball was accurate and everything finishes where it needs to finish.
But knowing that in our
But you're
June,
saying that there's favorability, even if we decide to say, hey, we're blessing this, we assume that there's going to be upside favorability and closing that gap, if not all of it.
exactly.
So that just means their reserves then are at zero.
Basically, it could be even more, because they in the 23 budget, they use 7 million in reserve. So it could flip all around. Okay?
But I know that I'm bad at math, so that would suggest that right now there's $6 million in 401 reserve.
Let me say this, if everything flips, where right now they're projected based on the budget that they have for 23 and what they're asking for in 24, okay? Where they ended, let me start from this, where they ended in 22, what they budgeted in 23, and their budget amendments in 23, and what they're asking for in 24, that's the $3 million deficit. However, when we look at 23, it looks like instead of them using 7 million in reserves, they may come in at a positive of about 3-point-some million.
But
So-
the resulting benefit for them not to have to use any of that 9 million. So that would suggest that if they had to use the 9 million, it would result in a negative $3 million reserve balance.
Correct.
Meaning that their current balance if everything hits, would be $6 million going into 2024,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So those 401 basically was a struggle. Of course, the general fund, I will show you that we're fine there. We have adequate reserves. But 401 was definitely a struggle. We definitely got to do something with those water rates and fees.
So the cash balances that we have at the various banks, $100 million and some change.
Yes.
So obviously, if we look, and I'm just using the statistical number within the CAFR, there's $43 million in the general fund reserve. Now, of that 24.9, or call it 25, is unreserved. Everything else is assigned or encumbered for different reasons. So that's 40, call it 43 million bucks. I'm assuming some of the other cash balance is impact fees.
Yes, definitely.
Some of it would be the 401 fees.
Yes. Any potential excess there, yes.
So really, if you point in time number, only $50 million of that would be considered reserve out of that entire cash balance. Everything else is some sort of impact fee or some other encumbered dollar amount.
And you do have other impact fees, as you know, recreation, yeah.
I just
So
want to
I can get you a
I'm-
breakdown. I don't have that, definitely not off the top of my head, but yeah.
Because we have guidance, obviously, there's kind of that what's the general governmental financial
GAP.
organization? So they've got their, baseline reserve requirements, and we've always talked about that, but we've always really just talked about it from a general fund perspective.
Correct.
I'm assuming we need to apply the same logic to the 401 funds.
I think we need to look at it, definitely, yes, sir.
And we do have one on the wastewater because of the bond covenant. It's like 4 million.
Well, this is the one I worked to the auditor to find out.
Right.
It doesn't state a covenant, but what I was trying to do is make sure we do have enough
1 year.
reserves to cover at least 1 year of debt payment.
Yeah, I mean, I think at minimum, every dollar that we have, every cash dollar that we have within a bank should be earmarked for something. We
And
should
we
be
do
able
have
to
a
always
pool-
reconcile, hey, if I've got to the penny, okay, here's how much is allocated to unassigned general fund reserve right now. And then, because, yeah, it's a financial exercise because you've got different kind of commitments within financial systems and this, that, and the other, but every dollar we should be able to say at any point in time, how much of this is allocated to 401 reserves versus general fund reserves versus impact fees, and not only impact fees, recreation, fire, police, this, that, and the other.
And the pool cash fund kind of breaks it down like that. We do have a pool cash fund, but please keep in mind that all of your reserves is not necessarily cash.
But I know that we've got over $100 million in cash
And I
in
understand.
financial institutions. That's what I'm,
I know
Yeah.
that's where you're getting it from,
Yeah,
but I just want you to. keep
what
that
you're saying though is that it may not reconcile to the penny in terms of, hey, I've got a cash balance in a financial institution. My reserve may be a number greater than that because only part of it is cash, part of it is in some other investment vehicle.
Exactly. Good.
Okay.
Exactly. But we do use it as a measure as well, however. So I just wanted to give some clarity to that because I understand, I'm not familiar with this software. Only thing I can say is, I apologize for any confusion that it may have caused. We'll try to get something different in the past, probably download everything into Excel and make it work better because it's not the most user-friendly system. And the report that you have came out of the system. If we didn't show that first number, you wouldn't understand the last number because it backs it out. It backs out that. You see those negatives. That's the only way the math could work. But the numbers are correct, and they do support the numbers that you saw tonight at the end.
Okay, any last questions? Well, we'll do just take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll come back and do the budget and.
Special meeting and do,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
do the overview at that time.
Yep. So we'll just
Okay.
come back,
Need to do what?
come back 5 minutes.
What is